Good afternoon, everybody. We will call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is a special session, so I'll entertain a motion at this time to go into special session. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of going into special session, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. Item is to consider the approval of a contract, improvements to 170 West Washington Street.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move to award contract 15-10-06 for improvements to 170 West Washington Street to replace the roof, all windows, and paint the north, south, and west side of the building. To My Time Constructions, Inc., in the amount of $237,064. These improvements will prevent further damage to the interior and improve the appearance of the exterior of the building. The funding will be from the State Community Legacy Property Management Proceeds and Economic Redevelopment Funds.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Metzner and seconded by Mr. Munson. Any discussion?
Yes. Of the total improvements identified, which of these items are necessary to do what the motion is intending, which is to prevent further damage?
I'd say certainly the roof. There's the membrane roof, and then there is also in the front of the building, there's the kind of conical shaped roofs that have slate on them, that a lot of the slate are missing. So the roof certainly be part of that. The windows, there's some of the windows that the weather's getting in that it's not sealed up. I'd say the thing that's probably the least preventing further weather damage in the interior would be the painting. But the windows and the roof, I think, would be the most important things.
And the idea here is to prepare the building to make it more attractive to an economic redevelopment purpose.
Correct.
But that represents about 180,000 of the amount, right?
Yes, the 25,000 is the painting. Item C on there is the front porch, replacing and painting the front porch, and then the fourth item is the slate roof. So the painting itself is
Okay.
just 25,000.
Okay, that's, I see.
Is there any matching requirement for the legacy funds?
You know, John.
There is no specific matching requirement, but with all the funding that we had initially put into the project with the first phase, including the acquisition and demolition, Community Legacy has sent us the official notification of all the funding for the project with what we've already put into it and with the anticipated funding into the next phase of renovations.
And this is the funding that was gonna be in the other project?
Correct. This was initially slated for the student housing project, and that was switched out for 170 West Washington.
Is this moving on it in this fashion?
No, I think we had initially local funding set up to cover these costs, so that was just basically the flip-flop of the $100,000 community legacy funding, and we had we had a separate local fund for $100,000 that's now going to the student housing project.
Just to follow up on an earlier question, would it be the intention that to market the building after this, or would there be further work before we would attempt to market the building to a finisher?
I think we're still actively marketing it now, but I don't think we would anticipate any additional renovation work after this work that's proposed right now.
I would also note that, unless I'm misreading this, with the difference in the next three bids, I sure wouldn't want to let this bid slip through our fingers. I mean, the next bid is almost $160,000 more than this. And I can't imagine if we didn't accept this right now and ended up putting this back out to bid, I can't conceive we'd do it for under $350,000.
It was bid as a package?
We had different items that they could give us different prices on. The actual bid came in at, where's that number? $293 but there was some things that we felt that we didn't need to do at this time that we took out, but we're recommending the award for 237.
Okay, but
Okay.
would the 293 be comparing apples to apples on these other bids?
No, Tim put that together so that the 237 compares to those numbers. down
Okay,
there. Now,
so-
note that the middle one's 334, so it's
So these are
100,000.
apples to apples.
It's still
Yes.
over just about $100,000 difference.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
And the state community legacy grant portion makes up, what, 100 or 150 of it?
150. We had initially 50,000 awarded from a separate community legacy award, and then the additional 100,000 was the transfer for the student housing award.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carries and the award is approved. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We will adjourn our special session and go into our work session. The first item of which is a proclamation for National Bookmobile Day. So I'm going to invite our friends from the Washington County Free Library up. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like to tell everybody who you are?
Yes, I'm Laura Schnackenberg. I'm the manager of the Bookmobile.
And you are?
Holly Elliott, just a library associate.
Just a library associate.
I'm Blake Daly, I'm the Bookmobile driver.
Excellent. Well, we're here to celebrate National Bookmobile Day. This is a proclamation that says, whereas libraries and bookmobiles play a vital role in supporting the quality of life in their communities, whereas librarians are trained professionals helping people of all ages and backgrounds find and interpret the information they need to live, learn, and work in a challenging economy, and whereas Washington County has the first and oldest bookmobile service in the country, beginning in 1905, and whereas Mary Titcomb, the head librarian of Washington County at the time, saw the need and brought the concept of a horse-drawn book wagon to life. And whereas the Washington County Free Library Bookmobile's continuing mission is to bring the books to the people. It visits retirement communities, daycares, community centers, homebound patrons, nursing homes, Head Start centers, and hospital facilities. And whereas the Washington County Free Library Bookmobile also provides DVDs, music, ebook assistance, job search resources, story times, book clubs, summer reading programs, and a partnership with the Washington County Public Schools to prevent summer reading loss. And whereas, though through many changes and advancements, the Washington County Free Library Bookmobile has remained in operation for 110 years and will continue on into the future. Now therefore be it resolved that I, David Geisberts, the mayor of the city of Hagerstown, Maryland, proclaim National Bookmobile Day, Wednesday, April 15th, 2015, and encourage all residents to visit your local library and take advantage of all the wonderful library resources available, brought directly to you by Bookmobiles. So thank you very much for all the work you do, and would you like to say a few words about the latest and greatest
Well,
of the
I
Bookmobile?
think this pretty much sums it up, but I just would also like to add that it is our honor and pleasure to serve our community with this special service from the Washington County Free Library. We do see a lot of people who would not be able to get to the library to get books. We do assist people with ebooks, and a lot of times we'll be driving up the road and they'll be outside waving at us, waiting for us to get there. So it is a pleasure, and it is also something that fills a very great need in Washington County. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're very proud of the Bookmobile. Would you like to say a few words? Okay. Okay, well, thank you for being here. I think
Pivot around this way.
Okay.
All right, on three. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much. Thanks again. The next item on our agenda is funding for citywide down payment and rehab program.
Good afternoon.
Greetings.
We wanted to take a few moments to update the mayor and council on the program the mayor and council created in October of 2013, the Citywide Down Payment and Rehabilitation Assistance Program. A new program to help incentivize home buyers to buy properties that have been vacant for extended periods of time and target the older properties that are in some of our older neighborhoods. And the program has been a great success. We've, to date, helped 17 home buyers through this funding source specifically for folks to buy a home that's been vacant for 12 months or longer and it's been built before 1960. So the good news scenario is we're seeing the program being utilized. We're seeing interest in the program daily. The problem is we're running out of funding. When the program was initially funded through our general fund reserves, it was funded at a level of $150,000. And where we stand right now, we have 3 more applications in progress that would totally wipe out all of the original budget for the program. And what we would like to do is look at a short-term solution to fund the program for the remainder of this fiscal year. We have some funding that's still available in the City Center Residency Initiative Down Payment Program. I believe we still have $80,000 of funding available in that program. It's not being utilized quite as much as the citywide down payment program. We would recommend that we transfer about $30,000 from that program to the citywide program to keep that program up and running for the remainder of this fiscal year. And once again, we're still seeing strong interest in this popular program. And as we continue forward with our budget discussions for fiscal year 2016, you'll see in the budget book where we propose $500,000 from general fund reserves to be allocated to the First Third Grant Program. Since that initial recommendation was put in the budget book, I guess a few months ago, we're recommending a small shift in that. We'd like to take $100,000 of that $500,000 for fiscal year 16 and apply to the citywide program. We think it's a strong program. It's building home ownership. It's taking care of some of these vacant properties that have been vacant for long periods of time in our older neighborhoods. So I think the goal in the short term is to seek the mayor and council's approval of a funding shift from the current budget to continue the citywide down payment program in fiscal year 15. And we would ask for your consideration as you go through the budget process for fiscal year 16 to consider funding this program again at a level of $100,000.
Questions first? Has everybody that's taken advantage of this program kept their commitment, the 5-year commitment?
Since we're only about 16 months in, as of now, I'm not aware of anybody who's broken the commitment. I can check on that officially, but yeah, it's a relatively new program, and we're only 16 months in, so we're excited how quickly it's been utilized.
Okay, now, the next thing is, you mentioned 3 projects, properties that you're about to close. Are there some others in the pipeline coming after that?
Not currently. We had additional inquiries on the program and application requests, but we haven't approved any applications or received any completed applications. But the 3 that are in progress are approved and set for settlement in the coming months.
But you anticipate others coming on
Yes.
pretty fast?
Yes, the way things have been moving with it, we anticipate more.
Okay, thank you.
And as I'm reading, the current balance in the city center residency fund is 80?
It's 80, yes.
And
It
so
was-
there'll be 50,000 left in that
Yes.
fund after the transfer of
Yes.
30,000? Okay.
We had initially funded the city center residency down payment at 100,000. Current balance is 80, so we're recommending just a shift of 30 to help stem the tide, so to speak, in this fiscal year for the citywide program. But yes, it would still leave 50,000 in the city center
For this
down
fiscal year.
payment, excuse me. Yes.
I have no problem with the transfer, but it doesn't mean I'm approving FY16.
Duly
I have
noted.
no problem with the FY15, because it's a transfer of what we appropriated.
Mhm.
But FY16,
No commitment from
one way
you?
or the other.
Okay.
I would concur with Martin, and I would say that before I would even consider the request for next year, I would want to see the list of how many people, where was and what the money was used for.
Sure.
And that'd give me a much better feeling of how the program is working, other than just knowing that we're spending the money. And I understand it's being done with the right things, but I'd like to
Be a
actually
good
see
part of the
what's.
budget review.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think our goal was to give you a heads up, so to speak,
Mhm.
and just consider it as we move forward with the FY16 budget process.
This one here is run like the, would it be run like the other one was, where there was $20,000? No, this would have been back. And that the people from the city at that time, which would have been Larry Bear, and I forget who else, went where the homeowners were at and then told them, exactly what the next step was that they had to do with the money that they were getting.
That may have been the Home Pride program?
I don't remember
possibly.
what it was, but I know if the roof was needed, the roof was gonna be first before something else came. So is that still the same, or is it what their needs are as far as
Yeah.
remodeling?
When the guidelines were developed for this one, it's it's more of a down payment program, so it's more of the funding
This
has
is
been
not
utilized.
the,
Okay.
Yeah, it's
the
Yeah,
not,
but
loan
there's extra-
program or anything
No,
like
but
that.
it was basically a grant. If
Oh,
you were there
okay.
5 years, it
yeah,
was paid off.
it does act like a grant if you're there for 5 years.
Correct.
But yeah, it's in general use for down payment. We had some homeowners that have used it, for an initial repair that may have prevented occupancy or
Right,
something.
because, I mean, now, let's face it, a lot of the homes you can buy dirt cheap,
Yeah.
and this money here, you may not need
Exactly.
what
So-
is there. So whatever would be left, and that was why I said.
Yeah, we did add the rehab component. We did
Okay.
see some action on that side of it as well.
So you're okay with the transfer, Ms. Nye?
Yeah.
And Mr. Munson?
How do you advertise this program? How do people know about it?
We do various marketing of the program. Of course, one of the main strategies is just through our website and word of mouth. But we have staff that attend seminars or outreach networking events with realtors. We've done direct outreach with realtors as well. So it's also, I think, well-known among some of the local banks and mortgage lenders in the community. So I think there's a partnership there where somebody who's working on a mortgage with a mortgage lender in Hagerstown, they're aware of the program.
Congratulations on its success. You're obviously doing something right.
Yeah, it's one of those good problems to have. We're seeing people utilize the incentives. It's just now coming up with additional funding for them.
Yeah, I wanted to say too, I think John and Stacy and DCD have done a really nice job with these programs. In 20 months, we've allowed 37 people or supported 37 people moving into homes that are now owner occupied, using our funds and then the state funds, with 3 more pending. So it has been successful. The word is getting out. People are using it. And in this case, with this program, we're also addressing vacant properties in residential areas. So they've done a nice job of advertising it and implementing this program.
And Mr. Alshire, you're good with the transfer? Okay.
We'll come
Thank you
back
very-
with a motion for regular session this month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is Main Street Hagerstown launch event, coming up soon.
Well, good evening.
Evening.
I'd like to bring an update on the Main Street Progress Program and then a little bit of an announcement about what's going to happen next week. To provide some initial background, we received the designation officially from the DHCD in fall of 2014 to review Main Street as a proven model for organizing your downtown revitalization conversations through a 5 work group structure. And it is a state and nationally recognized model. Work to date since the designation in the fall has included the formation of an implementation work group. We've been meeting since the fall, and representatives of Greater Hagerstown, the private sector, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Downtown Movement, the Arts Council, USMH, and the faith community have all participated in the implementation work group. And the main goal of that work group was to choose an individual work group leadership. Part of those 5 work groups are going to be organizing the conversation about downtown revitalization, and also to help plan the launch event, which happens next Wednesday. So next Wednesday, at 7 o'clock at the library, we have a big event planned. The event will be facilitated by Elliot Fansteel, who's a CEO and founder of Strathmore Hall in North Bethesda. He has a strong arts background and is very familiar with the Main Street program, and he's well-known in this community. The flow of the evening is to be basically, there will be a community welcome from the mayor. I will quickly introduce the Main Street structure in the 5 work groups that Main Street deals with. And then Mr. Fansteel is going to step in with a facilitated discussion basically on community stewardship, what getting involved in the community means and how important it can be. He's well-versed in facilitations like that. And then after that, the work group leadership will come up and introduce each of their work groups: promotion, design, organization, collaboration, in business relations, and clean, safe, and green. And then after that, we're going to break out into each of the committee leaders will have kind of breakout sessions for each of their work groups, where people who have attended the event can choose to go meet with the leadership of the different work groups, learn more. Hopefully, they can even establish regular meeting times for each of these work groups and really kick it off. At the end, Mr. Fancy will do a quick debrief and kind of a wrap-up. The desired outcome of this launch event next Wednesday night is to really foster a volunteer participation within those 5 work groups. And we also want to establish a foundation to attract more volunteers towards this effort, to foster more participation. It's really, this sets a tone, this sets a foundation on which to build on. There's more information in your packet, a refresher on the Main Street and the five different work groups, that structure. And there's also a flyer for next Wednesday night's event that everyone is encouraged to pass out and talk about and spread throughout the community. So, are there any questions about what's going on? Sir?
Are you including Tim in this project?
So, yes, one of the update, you'll see under business relations that we had a quick vacancy and the leadership on that. Mr. Harmon has agreed to chair that. Yes, he has.
Good.
Yeah.
That's a good move.
Yep.
Let me ask you one other question. The chairman of the subcommittees, do they have they committed to a certain time period?
They have not committed to a certain time. Well, it's at least 1 year.
At least 1 year, okay.
But I think that it could be longer than that in some ways. That's why we chose to go with a chair and co-chair organization structure, so that there will be backup and we won't necessarily have burn out quickly.
Well, obviously, the first year is going to be very important.
Absolutely.
And we need some consistency in their service.
Sir.
Well, I'm going to thank you because I know this has been a long process and took a lot to put together just this event, but to get all these people on board and to get everybody oriented in the right direction, the fact that it's action-oriented, this is not an advisory group that's going to come in and tell us what we should do. They're going to actually roll up their sleeves and do it. So I want to thank all those volunteers who are on the various work groups, and thank you, staff, for all your efforts in putting it together. Look forward to the event.
Thank you. Thanks.
Does anyone else have any questions for them? Thank you.
Just so the public knows, this program really does have a lot of potential. And it's going to bring noticeable improvements, I think, to Hagerstown in a very short time. So those of people who are watching us and listening to us can expect to see that in the not-too-distant future.
We had the committee leadership, or work group leadership orientation last night, and it's fun to see when people start throwing ideas around, what can be done, and what can be done quickly. People get excited. So, we're gonna see some action quickly.
I think it also positions the community as a recognized Main Street across the state, and because it's a national program, that people visiting Hagerstown learn that it's a Main Street community, identify with that brand, and it can build national pride as well as local pride for that designation.
Does it rely on state appropriations? I believe it does, doesn't it, parts of it?
The program does at the state level.
At the state level.
At the state level, yes. But it's housed within the Department of Community, DHCD, Community
Right.
Housing Development, whatever.
Housing community development.
Housing community, and I believe that they have received their funding as requested this year.
So it's in this budget.
It is in this budget.
Okay.
That was recent news.
Yeah, that's a moving target for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is stormwater management grant opportunities.
We've been in a few times before to talk about some of the stormwater requirements we're facing, and Jim's, I think, done an excellent job trying to find money to help us along the way, and tonight he has another idea that we'd like to present to see if you're interested in pursuing it.
So we'd like to give you information about a grant application that we have already submitted. Submitted it on March 15th. It's through the Chesapeake Bay Trust. It's what used to be known as their greening grant program, basically looking for ways to make urban landscapes a little bit more green. It's, over the past couple of years, they've changed the name to Green Streets, Green Jobs, Green Towns. But it's still basically the same sort of program. There are grant funds available to do environmental projects. It could be street tree planting that we've done in the past, could be stormwater management projects, small-scale stormwater projects. It's sort of vague, and I think that they're still sort of feeling their way through exactly how they want to focus the program, and it seems to change from year to year. In past years, the funding that they were getting skewed more to the tree planting, greening aspect. This year, apparently, the majority of the funding is coming through EPA, and they're very interested in stormwater projects. So we put together a proposal that is still mostly street tree planting around town, but it also had a couple small-scale stormwater elements to it. The maximum amount of funding that you can request through CBT in this cycle was $75,000, and that's what we requested. We offered a $10,000 cash match to that for a total project of $85,000. And what we're hoping is that that would be, if we're successful, that would be enough money to plant, I forget the number of trees that we had. I think it's around 100 street trees, and to do these 3 small stormwater projects, basically just increasing the size of landscape islands on some streets up in the north end. We submitted that application on March 15th. I think that they are going to make a determination and announce awards by sometime in May, end of May, I think. They don't have a definite date. So we've been very successful in the past getting grants through CBT. They've been a good partner to work with. So we're hopeful that we'll get good news on that. If we do get an award from them, we will bring that back to council for your approval to see if you're interested. Another program that we were successful with last year is through the Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays Trust Fund. We made a request last year for a $500,000 grant to do 2 stormwater projects, retrofit projects, and we were successful in getting that $500,000 grant last year, and we're in the process of putting those 2 projects out to bid. Probably we'll have them out to bid within the next 2 to 3 weeks. This program came around again this year, and we were very interested in applying for it again. And so we're here, I guess, this evening just to tell you what our proposal would be for this year's grant cycle and explain what it means to us, what it could mean for the city, and then, I guess, get the council's endorsement to go ahead and submit this application. The application is due by April 30th. So we have about 2 weeks to finish pulling together the application if we decide to move forward with it. What we're proposing in this application this year is 2 projects out at the Hagerstown Industrial Park. The industrial park, when it was developed, was designed in a very functional way, but there weren't many considerations given to stormwater management or environmental considerations. So the 2 projects we're looking at doing now is, one would be building a small stormwater management treatment facility on land that the city owns, the north end of the park. And the other part of the proposal is to actually narrow the streets in the industrial park. The streets right now in the industrial park are 50 feet wide, curb to curb, which is 10 to 15 feet wider than we would have on any new street that we'd be building in the city. I'm sure it was done back then with the thought that you wanted to have wide streets for truck traffic, easy maneuverability. It's actually wider there than it really needs to be by a fair amount. What we would propose is to narrow the street pavement by about 10 feet on one side, move the curb line in to where the road is now, and create a green strip where that pavement used to be. It could be lawn area. It's probably also going to be a good place for additional street tree plantings, which are really needed out in the industrial park to sort of soften the whole industrial feel of that whole neighborhood. So what we would propose is requesting funds to do both of those projects. We're still working on the final cost estimates, but it's likely that we would request between $400,000 and $500,000 to do those two projects. We would propose a match of city funds of $40,000 to that request. And the $40,000 is something, when we looked at this, we realized that if we do narrow those streets, in the future, when we have to repave those streets or overlay them, that 10-foot width that we don't now need to overlay is going to represent a cost savings that we can pull back. And that cost savings on these streets pretty much covers, or actually more than covers, what we're proposing as a matching amount. So we would like to, I guess, get a nod of the head from the council, if we can go ahead and submit this grant application, $400,000 to $500,000 total, $40,000 city match, and hopefully we'll be successful again. This will be another good project for us that helps us meet our stormwater management goals.
Sounds good to me. Any questions or feedback from council?
In this case, we're leveraging a lot of money, so I can see at least giving a go-ahead right now to say that we can come up with those matching, because we're getting, I think, about 7 times on the one and over 10 times on the other. And that kind of leverage is hard to come by.
It's, all of these programs, it's a situation where there's no match requirement, but if you do provide a match, it tends to make your proposal more competitive.
When you determined that you could narrow the streets, I'm assuming you had conversations with the property owners out in the area that will be impacted.
We didn't yet, but we certainly will. We feel we can narrow the street and keep parking on both sides and have two-way traffic. But that would be one of our first things we'd want to do, is if we got the grant, we'd want to contact everybody. Make sure we get their feedback.
And if nothing else, there would have to be quite a bit of coordination if we actually went in to do this work, because it is going to be disruptive, and we're going to have to coordinate maintaining access to these properties while the work's being performed.
So none of them currently have or are anticipated to have truck traffic.
Well, what I heard you say is that even with narrow streets, truck traffic shouldn't be an issue. It's still wide enough for turning radii and all that stuff, right?
You can still provide two 12-foot lanes, which is our widest lane that we provide, and parking on both sides with the narrow section. It's just, they're excessively wide.
50 feet, right? Yeah.
Is there any right-of-way beyond the existing paving? Do you know? That we, in the public right-of-way, what's the public right-of-way?
I don't remember offhand what it is specifically. It runs in my mind that those streets are 70 to 80 foot right-of-ways, but I'd have to confirm that. So there's probably 10 to 15 feet outside the curves.
Yeah, outside even the wide paving. Oh, wow.
Let me ask you this question, it's a little off subject, but it's related. Have you ever considered, in terms of stormwater management, putting circles in where there are lights now, and opening all that space for water to sink into the ground?
You mean like at cul-de-sacs or the traffic circles in the north end?
Traffic circle, the ones like are located in the north end of Hagerstown, for instance, which seem to be fairly popular with people who live there. Have you ever looked at that?
I don't know that we've specifically looked at.
To replace traffic signals, is that what you said?
Replacing traffic? Well, that would be one of the benefits. The main thing is it would make an area where the water would directly sink into the ground. There wouldn't be macadam on it.
I think the first grant that Jim mentioned, there's 3 traffic islands like that we can do something like what you're describing, where we're removing pavement and adding non-pervious surfaces. We're adding pervious surfaces to let the water get into the ground. So that is some of the thinking of that grant. And also here too, trying to remove that pavement. But we're always looking for opportunities to reduce pavement like that where it's not needed, because A, we have to maintain it, and B, it just makes for excessive runoff.
Okay, thank you.
And we did have a sort of a pre-application meeting with the grant officer from Chesapeake and Atlantic Coastal Bays. She came to town, we looked at several project sites, and she seemed to feel that this was a worthy effort to go ahead and apply for at the industrial park. The other grant that's mentioned in the memo is something that just came up last week, actually. We were contacted by the local conservation district. They said that they had connections through the state conservation district agency to go after grants from the National Fish and Wildlife Service. And we've sort of been feverishly working over the past couple of days to put together information for them to submit a grant on our behalf. It would be a fairly small grant. I think the maximum total request can be $50,000. The different agencies that we're working with take their cut out of that. So we probably would net about $35,000 in funds that we could use. At least in this round, we're thinking that would also be street tree planting, additional street trees around town. No cash match required from the city for that application. So I think we're probably going to go ahead and apply for that as well. And then they have another grant cycle this summer, focused more on stormwater management opportunities, and probably the same size grant. And we anticipate we'll put together some sort of a proposal for that. We're basically looking for any grant funding opportunities out there to do stormwater projects. We're trying to get an application in.
We appreciate the fact that you're looking at all the grants available. Thank you.
So are we okay to apply for the grants?
Looks like we have a consensus. No objections. So ordered.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trash talk.
We're here to just kind of give an update of the actions that we've taken since we last met on March 17th. I'll touch on the first three, and then Rod, if you want to take yours. We've reviewed this with the city attorney in terms of being able to have a fee. At the last meeting, the majority supported that concept of having a surcharge or some sort of a fee for if an inspector comes across a situation, is able to just take the trash with them to provide immediate relief for the neighborhoods. Mr. Boyer thinks that that's legal, and he's preparing amendments to Chapter 117, so we'll be able to implement that. Our hope is to have that for introduction this month. We're continuing our education efforts. We have issued some fines for folks that we've dealt with repeatedly. So we are ramping up the enforcement. We're doing more educational things. We've developed some more material for the website, as well as staff are coordinating a community outreach scheduled for May, and that's to discuss the placement of the containers when trash is not set out, but the storage of containers on property. And these things are all consistent with the direction that we received on the 17th, so we wanted to make you aware of those and to see if you had any question on those items.
Well, and John, if I could, to clarify on the second point.
Yes, sir.
That's where, when we discussed this with council back in March, we're gonna focus on the landlord.
Yes, sir.
Give them one heads-up notice, I'll say, that they've got a trash problem, and then start issuing fines thereafter.
Yes, sir.
To the landlord.
Yes.
Or property owner.
Yes, sir.
On the properties, they're all tied together, and you can still access the back. Either it's from that end or from this end. How are you gonna handle that? Because they can get to it. It's like the properties that are up on Burhans Boulevard that are all together. They would have to bring it out from the back rather than to let it set out front.
In terms of storage of the containers, That's the part that is left for the community input.
With the trash committee? Is that what the trash committee's looking at, or community input of who?
Yes, it's for the storage of the containers when it's not set out for pickup. So whether containers can remain on sidewalks, whether they have to be completely out of sight, that was the direction that we received.
Can you define sidewalk? In other words, I go up the street and clearly there are some containers that are out in the public right away. The sidewalk folks are walking down. And you have other buildings where the container is out of the walkway,
Stoop.
right next to the stoop on the house side.
Most of those, like in, say Locust Street or some of the other downtown streets, those stoops, the majority of those are in the public right-of-way. So the public sidewalk would almost extend to the building line. So I guess what you're saying, John, is that they're storing it on that public sidewalk, but it's, whether it's at the stoop or out at the curb, it's still the public right-of-way. Is that what you mean?
But we would have to define that for each property.
I think the downtown streets in general, it's up to the face of the building. If it's in the front of the building, it's in the public right-of-way. On a street like Locust, Mulberry, Potomac, Jonathan.
Washington.
And, Tom's watching. I think we need to apologize. I have a landlord who contacted me a number of weeks ago, and Rodney and I just, every once in a while, things don't go the way they should, and we didn't get back to Tom, but he was indicating to me two issues. One, again, is a basic issue that we all have and everything, and that's communication. He was saying the tenants don't necessarily always get informed as they should as to when the days are. But more importantly, and a very interesting thing he said to me, he said, you know, I have some multi-family residents in the county. He says, and I have half containers there. He said, you know, that's cheaper for me and it's easier for me. Can't I put them in the city and get them covered? And we were going to get back to him, and these are also the kinds of things I think we need to look at. And there was a responsible landlord who's reaching out saying, what can I do? And I think I have a good idea, and I think it's cheaper for me and better for you. So obviously, if we can achieve those win-win goals, that would be very good.
My understanding, because we talked about the multifamily units and up to, 10 units? You can get the residential service, but after that, you'd have to get a private
I
hauler?
kind of use
or-
a soft goal there, that if they have room on their property, especially in the downtown area, if they have room on their property for a dumpster or a trash room in the building, and they have at least, say, 5 or 6 units,
'Cause
I let
there's
them opt
nothing-
out.
Right,
and
you
let
could
them
opt
have
them
private
out.
service.
We'd still
That
have
way-
the requirement that they don't put any totes or anything.
Exactly,
on
we need to make sure, though,
public.
when they opt out, that they don't wind up sitting on the
Right.
sidewalk for
Right.
private collection. That doesn't accomplish anything.
Right, right.
But otherwise, if they have a dumpster, I generally let them opt out, and I don't really have a fixed number that I look for.
Okay.
I guess when I look at the list, and I sent some information, I guess I look at this list almost as, and I said this before, sort of a bottom-up approach. I feel like the first thing that this list says is we're gonna find people. And I'll be the first one to say, I guess it's either 136 or 236 South Potomac. There is crap land in front of that place at all times. And yes, right away. That type of instance should get a fine because, you know, that is a deplorable condition in front of that property. But I think that when I look at this list, I still believe that we need to talk about some type of uniform tote system downtown because you've identified 700 totes, which I think is a significant number, that 80 to 90% of those properties and the condition that we're trying to address could be dealt with that type of measure, rather than trying to pick and choose 700 different, you know what I mean, tote locations fine because of set out on the wrong day. I just associate those two that closely, and I think that it speaks to that communication issue. The second is, and this is the second one from the bottom, that talks about the recycling totes. And one of the items here is if they no longer want the tote, and when I read that, that tells me we're going in the wrong direction. I don't want that to be the option. If folks are upset that the totes are blue, that they're too big, or what have you, or that they're sitting out all the time, the option on the table shouldn't be, well, we're just gonna take them away, because all that does is put that trash into our collection and places it into our tipping fee costs, and it doesn't address the you know,
But you have
the
to-
effort to recycle.
But Kristen, you have to make sure that the totes, first off, are being used. A lot of these totes that are sitting along the street are not even being
Well,
used. And then the ones to recycle, a lot don't even recycle. They put something else in the
I mean,
recycle.
I walk around and most of the ones you see out, those 100 that you said you've seen out, most of them are being used. They may not be used by all of the folks in that building, but they're being used. It's just no one takes on that responsibility to pull them back or what have you. And I don't know that any landlord sort of figures that out among the, you know, the 6 or 8 tenants in a particular building. And then the other question that I have is, when you talk about maximum number of units, there are so many mixed-unit buildings downtown, commercial/residential. And one of the pictures that I sent that I had a question about was the retail stores. There's 2 of them right here on Franklin, and every time I go by, there is mass quantities of cardboard set out in cardboard boxes. And as a person walking by, I don't know whether that mass quantity of recyclable cardboard is being picked up in regular trash set out. It's being picked up by the recycling, you know, component of our hauler, or it's just being thrown in with the residential component of collection, which to me isn't what I envision, you know, a single pay being, if you will, per quarter. In other words, your home in the city, $37 or whatever it is,
Right.
to me isn't the same as that $37 cost to pick up. Again, it's a significant quantity, and it's on a weekly basis.
We looked at some of those that were in your report. Some of them are in the program and some of them aren't, so they're not even paying anything. So a couple of them we need to follow up with. And what we charge commercial for recycling is $100 a year, which, just recycling, that seems to
But
be a
even
fair
that
cost.
doesn't get to the issue of, some just aren't doing it at all, and setting it out as regular refuse. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whether they're in or out, I
Yeah.
think, you know, whether they're using or not using doesn't address the issue that it's being set out, and cardboard isn't a light, you know, commodity that's adding to that. So I don't know.
Well, on your comment about the 100 totes that we saw that were sitting in the public right away, I'll just take off that third part if that's what everybody feels. And we'll just say, please don't store them in the sidewalk, which we've notified them about that before and we had some success. But then if they also want a smaller tote, or going back to the bins, something they could store in their building or something they can carry through their building easier, we have those available, we can offer them.
And the reality is, of those 100 locations of totes that you probably counted, I'm gonna venture that 65 of them are accompanied by some type of trash container. You know, that like it or not, has probably always been there and been kept in varying conditions of
That's right, Joe.
you know, common sense compliance. And again, I look at this list and think, man, it'd be real nice if we could work from the bottom up and say, let's find a solution while we're identifying, you know, the real offenders. Like I said, and as soon as I said the address, you knew it, you know, and work toward that solution, you know, and then get to the finding stage. And you know, there's any number of streets downtown where there's just, you know, unless you're finding an internal storage space, there's no practical way to remove all of the containers from the street all the time. And
I think the education component is a big factor in this, and making sure people know what the standards are that we want them to meet in terms of where to store it,
Yeah.
that we want them to recycle,
And that was the goal behind the letters for the downtown.
whether it's the landlords or the residents or both. It's important to have that educational component.
And to the council member's point, that's why we wanted and recommended doing the community outreach, because the code currently says that when they're not set out, when containers are not set out for pickup, they're supposed to be out of sight, except in the opinion of the code official. And we've been making those common sense calls, just like what you're suggesting. And we're getting beat up by folks in the neighborhoods who are saying, no, we don't want to see any containers. So that's why we wanted to see if we can build a consensus in the community.
And I guess I struggle a little because I'm sure everybody else got the same letter from the gentleman with the pawn shop that says, hey, I've got a commercial establishment, and they use a trailer, an open-air trailer, as their dumpster in a neighboring commercial establishment. And it's hard pressed that really isn't defined in the code, you know, that you can't do that. But we're gonna fine for a single bag of trash, you know, but a neighboring commercial entity gets to keep a whole trailer of trash
Well-
until the trailer gets full and takes it away.
I can give an update on that if you like. The situation there is that trailer's a vehicle. Now, first off, all the trash has been removed.
Oh, yeah, I think we're
And,
addressing.
yeah, so the trash has been removed, but it was suggested that we would have authority under our nuisance abatement code to just go ahead and take that trash. And so the inspection staff worked with Mr. Boyer, and the legal opinion was that's considered inside of a vehicle, and we could not go and remove things from that trailer.
And I think we need to find it.
And so we issued the fines, but we did not have authority to abate because it's inside of a vehicle. So the fines have been issued. In the interim, the trash has been removed. So we're addressing with the tools we have, but the only way to address a vehicle violation is through the court system. So that one was a little bit more complicated, since it's a licensed vehicle.
What a dumpster, you know, what
Yeah.
an approvable dumpster is. And those are the pieces I think that we could get to, again, and I'm not saying we don't find anybody, I'm just saying, you
Well,
know.
and the staff are being judicious in their enforcement.
I think this is a good place to start.
Appreciate the update. Did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
regarding the what should we call them, the garbage totes for the downtown, I just wanted to give you some kind of order of magnitude of how many totes it would be and approximately the cost. What we did with the recycling totes is that we, if you remember, we put together a letter to everybody, and we said, we're planning on giving you this size tote. If you don't want this size, you can contact us and we'll change it. If you want a different number of them, we'll work with you on that. I guess we would go through that similar process for the totes, but this was just to kind of give you a rough idea. The great thing about that would be there'd be uniformity in the downtown on trash night.
And I guess that's where I'm at, is I don't see it as an option issue. I don't see it as an option issue, frankly, on issuance of refuse totes or recyclable totes. I just don't, that's just my philosophical, you know, position on it. I think you issue them, you require commercial establishments, just like the one I sent you of the restaurant here.
El Paso.
Yeah, El Paso, you know, 3 totes, private hauler picks it up. Those are the types of standards, I think, that you just simply say, you know.
You're saying the options would be what size tote it would be.
Yeah, or number.
That would be an issue.
Or whether
It would
they
be-
take them at all.
Or if they take them all.
And I just,
You're saying we should just issue them the tote.
I'm saying in that area, in order to achieve the goal of uniformity, of aesthetic appearance, of keeping the trash from blowing all over the street, of keeping folks from storing trash on trailers, of you know, keeping large debris from piling up, you know, you don't get there unless you say, you know, here are the tenets and, you know, of how we're going to accomplish.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think we'll still have the problem of people storing Then it will be the recycling
That's
tote
the
and the
difference.
trash tote in front of their house on the sidewalk next to their stoop.
But there are a ton of folks downtown that do that in a very responsible manner. You know, it just so happens that the blue ones are ugly. You know, and like I said before,
Seeing them
I-
hanging all over the place.
I hear the $45,000, but as I said, you know, the other week, most of us, you know, who don't live in the core certainly take a much higher advantage of things like yard waste removal than folks downtown, you know what I mean, who don't have that propagation of that service, so.
Any other feedback for staff on this issue?
Well, I'd like to
I
just
expect it'll
clarify,
come
'cause we're-
back.
Yeah, I would like to try to clarify, just to make sure we're following up in the way that council wants us to. It sounds like we're okay on the first three bullets on the memo, the outreach program for education, the fines on the landlord, and coming back in April with a proposed ordinance for the abatement fee. Those three things I think we're okay on as initial steps based on the discussion back in March and this afternoon.
No objections on those three items?
On the fourth one, do we amend that to take out the option of, we'll come pick up your blue tote if you don't want them?
Right, number 3, I'll just not include that in 11.
Yeah, that- the
It's trying to be
consensus-
an educational piece as well.
So we'll remove number 3. And then number 4, do you want us to continue to pursue the approach of the trash totes in Zone F? 700 totes for about $45,000.
I'm not ready to commit to that. I think we'll have green or brown, whatever color we make them, where, I mean, I'd kind of like to know more where they're already not getting put back and figure out a way to deal with that before we double the number that we have out there.
So bring that one back for
That's
more
what I would,
discussion.
I don't think we have it, you know, if we get a better solution you know, to the fundamental issue, then I think we could move this direction. I think it's not a bad way to go, but we've got to resolve
So we'll wait for more information on that.
And for me, I don't think the fundamental issue is the totes sitting out. The fundamental issue is the open refuse containers and the bags that fall out into the street that get ripped open. I don't care what street you walk down right now, you are gonna find trash blown, you know, in front of just about, you know, every property, because that, you know, that's what's occurring.
Well, because the definition of a trash bag is considered
Yeah.
a container, right?
No, I respectfully disagree with Kristen about the fundamental issue. Passed this idea by my wife, and she said, we really don't need any more totes sitting down on the streets in downtown Hagerstown. And I think that's the fundamental issue. I don't know how to get around that dichotomy, but.
Well, I think they both are. I mean, really, Kristen's got a very good
Okay,
point.
okay.
In my
Okay,
opinion.
I don't disagree with that.
Yes, where is the tote gonna be stored, whether it's a recycling tote or a trash tote? What I hear is people saying it's not appropriate to store them next to the stoop or on the street in front of the house in the public right of way, but that we also have the issue of the blowing refuse, because the alley cats rip open the trash bag or what have you, and the trash ends up blowing around, creating a different kind of nuisance. So it is a double-edged issue.
It is, and it's a nightmare, and you can go on any street and you can see exactly what we're talking about. And the problem is that if the people didn't want the big totes, as I should not have gotten, because I cannot handle the big ones, so I had to just get 2 small ones, because my hands and knees won't allow it any longer. But I know a neighbor had said to me, the trashman went by today, and this is what was in the recycle bin, and it was garbage, and the garbage was on the street. Okay, because the recycle people weren't gonna take care of it, but they went, oops, gee, no, didn't set it back, it went on the street. The problem is that I don't think overall we really know exactly what the trash men are getting out of these recycle bins, for me, okay? I can't say that they all are recycled items. And again, you will have the people that will fill them up, that they're tip-top, and not go ahead and take care of it when they're only half full. Then you're seeing the trash bin, that the lid is up here, and then we have all of this is in here. Now, if they're not cleaning anything out, then we've got the birds and the cats and anything else that would like to dumpster dive, as well as humans that are going in after aluminum. So, you know, I mean, it is a problem.
Well, Rodney, you
But
get
I
a
don't know
report
why
from
we
Waste
can't get them
Management.
off of the street. That's what really gets me. I just don't know why we can't get them off the street.
You get a report from Waste Management. If there are people that are not using their recycling properly, they'll do something about that, right? You'll
They
get,
tag them. They
Yeah.
put a hanger on there that basically says, this is so contaminated that we won't pick it up.
Right.
My understanding is across the nation for recyclables, 10 to 20% contamination, which means not recyclable material, is very normal. So if they open it up and they see a bunch of household, we'll just call it garbage, they're supposed to tag it. If they open it up and they see maybe one piece of item that is not recyclable, I think they'll still dump it in the recyclable truck. And then when it takes it to the MRF, where they separate all these things, there's always 10, 15% of that flow winds up going to a landfill because it's contaminated. That's normal. But they're supposed to tag it if it's all junk.
But unfortunately, it shouldn't even be considered normal. I mean, people just are not, they don't care about it.
Yeah, I mean.
You know, I mean,
what's on the
how
lid-
do you get anybody to care? Look at sidewalks and look at just cleaning leaves up. Who do you get to care? I don't know how you do it.
And another issue too, and Rodney just kind of hit on it. If you have trash totes, somebody is, in fact, it's gonna be more than somebody, it's gonna be a lot of people are gonna throw pure garbage in it. So now, yes, every couple days, every week, it'll get dumped out. But after a while, those things will start stinking so bad that you don't want to be anywhere around them on the street.
Even
And
after
it-
the dump.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
Those, I'm sorry to interrupt, but they stink after the dump because the residual in there.
Well, it's up to the individual who has the tote to clean it, but how many people actually wash them regularly?
John, refresh me again, I guess maybe we'd have to do it citywide, but could we require defined containers, garbage, good old-fashioned garbage cans, and not allow plastic bags? Could we do it by district? To get at some of the things that Kristen legitimately is concerned with, we all are, but Kristen's raising.
I think what we're hearing from the community and what the inspectors are experiencing, the current definition of container doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you have folks that use substitute bags, they'll use grocery store bags and things of that nature and try to tie them up. So much of this comes down to personal responsibility and being a good citizen. And, but in terms of what we can do from a code side legislatively, we could tighten up the definition. What I would recommend is if we go with the trash totes, and I personally think there's value in exploring that. I know in a lot of cities, they have trash totes and recycling totes. And it seems to work, but I would recommend that we also require that the trash have to be in a bag inside of the tote. And that would address Councilmember Munson's concern of that the totes then become unmanageable because of their stench in the summertime especially.
But what I mean is, containers might be easier for people to put somewhere than totes. I mean, as long as it's an enclosed container, whether it has a bag liner or not, could we require an enclosed container, for want of a better word?
Absolutely.
It might give them more flexibility in terms
Yes.
of getting them out of sight, is my point.
Absolutely,
Rather than just a
sir.
wheeled tote.
John, when I was in Annapolis, I used to live in an apartment during session, and they had trash totes, and you didn't put anything in a trash tote unless it was in a black bag. But the trash totes had to be taken off the streets. There was not a single tote on the main streets in downtown Annapolis at all. And the trash collector people came around more often than they do in Hagerstown. They came around 2 or 3 nights a week.
Right, well, we
and
had,
took
used to
and
have
took the
it
trash.
twice.
And the people who lived in downtown Annapolis had to pay an extra fee to get that done. But most people were willing to do that because they had a greater appreciation of the downtown.
And Don, how did they manage to get them out of sight, you know?
I'm sorry?
How did they manage to get them off the sidewalk out of? Because they have a lot of buildings that are right up
They do.
against each other.
I can't answer that, but they had to be taken off the sidewalk, and they couldn't be sitting in front of the properties at all, which would be the ideal situation, of
I
course.
mean, how do other cities deal with it? Frederick has same situation, don't they?
I think every city has that. I was just talking to a lady from West Management, she lives in Pittsburgh, they don't issue totes, they issue bags. So they have.
Pay as you throw.
recycling Bags. Pay as you throw is also another idea, but when they set out a clear bluish colored plastic bag, they come along, take it, and it's gone, and there's no tote sitting out there, but that's one approach. Most places though have totes, I believe.
That's probably more expensive.
It is more expensive, yeah.
Do you have enough direction for now? I'm sure we'll be bringing this item back in the near future, once we have more information and,
Yes, and we'll work with
Next
Mr. Boyer
steps.
on that amendment with, to chapter 117 for you all.
Right. Could I just raise one other
Sure.
issue? Sorry about this, but as you go on Burhan's Boulevard, after you go under the bridge,
Yes, sir.
you come around, the first building on the left is the Railroad Museum, and then there's some garages, and then a series of houses start there. The first house has a bunch of junk beside it. It's been there for a very long time. It needs to be taken away. So I see Paul sitting back there, and I just request that somebody do something about that,
Well,
please.
if an inspector has not visited it yet, we'll have an inspector go by tomorrow, sir.
thank you very much.
Keep an eye on the property in back of Zion Reform. It's now been filled again with renters, and there's about 10 bags that are at the tree. It could be trash night is tonight, but it's setting right at the tree. So I don't know if this will be an ongoing or not, and since we're gonna be going into heat, that's one that you can send us something to.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are City Hall projects and improvements.
Hello.
Greetings.
Yeah, I wanted to bring 3 projects to you. Some updates, and 2 of the projects are next year's budget, so we want to get moving on if possible. First one is the clock repair. I know you've been updated a little bit on the clock tower here, and I guess for the public, so they understand what's going on here. City Hall clock has 4 clock faces on it. Each clock is run by its own motor. 2 of the motors completely failed. So we're in the process of replacing, the motors can't be fixed, it's old technology. So we're replacing the motors, replacing the time clock, and upgrading that. I contacted a number of, as you can imagine, there's not that many companies out there that do this type of work. I contracted with Elderhurst Bells. I got an update this morning. We plan on meeting on May 6th as an initial meeting to do an evaluation of what they can and can't do. Part of it is the clocks themselves, the face of the clocks may have to be replaced. They're 1/2-inch thick glass. They may be cracked when they go to remove them. You know, they've been there in place since 1940 or so. So they have to evaluate all that. Even the hole in the center of the clock face may not be large enough for the modern technology. So there's a number of things that we won't know until they actually get here. But I just want to let you know that's moving forward. It's going to cost a little bit of money. It's not too expensive. $9,500 just for the clocks themselves and the master clock. If they have to replace the faces, they can do that. That'll be another $3,200. As far as lighting, we may contract with them, we may do it ourselves, but the back of the face is actually, it's backlit. There's light that shines through that glass. So we'll know more on May 6th. But it'll take probably another good month or so, maybe even 6 weeks to get the parts once we know that. So come May 6th, hopefully if that date doesn't change, I'll provide another update where we go, and how long, and that sort of thing, all right? The other two projects, kind of, oh, yes,
These numbers include all 4 clocks, right?
that is correct.
Total for all.
That is correct. Yep. The other two clock companies I contacted that do this type of work, one never responded, and the other one, after some details and discussions, decided to bow out. So Elderhurst was the only one that actually responded. They've been in business, I think, 100+ years or so. Yeah, so,
It's older than all
so
of us, I believe.
hopefully after this this will be one of those unique projects where I'll work on it and I'll hopefully never have to fool with this again, so.
I heard the whole, all the department heads took a field trip up to the clock tower. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
We haven't done that.
I know, well,
Give me a call, I'll be happy to
Yeah.
take you up and,
it's actually
Take a
really,
So
look.
throw me out of the clock
no,
tower?
I didn't say that.
Yeah, I know.
It's
Is the
interesting.
bell up there too?
Yes.
the bell is
Okay,
up there.
yeah.
The ringer mechanism has been disabled for, geez, probably since the 1970s, I think. I'm not sure quite what happened. I think Kent Dietrich was telling me a little bit of the history of it, but the bell is still up there. Part of the history was, this is getting off subject, but the bell was supposed to be removed from here and actually hung in the University District deck. Where the alcove is with the bike mural, if you look up, there's a steel beam there. My understanding is, Rodney left, but I believe that bell was supposed to be relocated to that location.
How on
And I
earth
guess
would they do that?
Couldn't quite figure out or had the money or whatever.
I don't know how you get it out.
I don't think
I
so
don't know how you
either.
get it
I
out.
think that's what the problem was,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what,
So-
I noticed on the 5th floor, it's kind of off the topic, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of water damage. And I don't know.
Yeah,
is
most
that-
of those leaks have been, that's been years and years
So
and
that's
years.
just old
Yeah.
stuff that hasn't been
Yep.
replaced?
There's a number of type of roofs. There's flat roofs, there's rubber roofs, there's slate roofs, and all those leaks and repair.
Well, and I didn't know if it was just that weather actually gets in that tower.
That's part of it,
And then
too.
just comes down that steel cylinder
That is part of it.
stairwell.
If you look up there, you see that the green vents, that's open. And
right.
when it blows hard enough, the water does come in there. There's no way to prevent that from coming in.
But
so.
that's not the core cause of all that.
No, there was other issues over
water
all
damage.
these
I
years.
see.
And because the floor is used for storage, there was no immediate need to go up and patch or
Right.
repair.
Although I do hear that there's an effort underway to clean the 5th floor up and make it
None of my
nicer.
stuff's up there, but I'll leave that to the other departments to.
Yes, that effort is much appreciated.
Okay. Anything else on the, okay. The other two projects have to do with next year's budget, and I was asked to bring this to you. The one is the painting of the clock tower, which probably hasn't been done in over 15 years. I've been here over 16 years, and it hasn't been done since I've been here. And the other is air conditioning for the council chambers. So let me talk about the clock tower painting. If you look outside, you'll notice that the paint is getting rough. It's coming apart, and it's very visible. So between the clocks and the painting, it probably, needs to be done. And we'll have to write a spec and get it bid out. Not any contractor will be able to do that type of work, obviously, because of the height and the location of it. I'm pretty certain there's no lead paint. When it was done the last time, all the lead paint was removed. So now it's just a matter of basically scraping and painting. So we don't have that issue to deal with. The air conditioning, as most of you probably know, maybe not, but the air conditioning for this room is shared with the floor below us. So when you have air conditioning here, the staff below you do not, and it can be switched between the two. And I assume that was done because this room wasn't used as much and cost and who knows what. So the idea is to try and incorporate new air conditioning into the system. That probably won't, even if you gave me the nod ahead tonight, that probably would not happen for this summer because it takes a while to get that designed and bid out and constructed. But I wanted to bring it to you tonight to see if there was a nod ahead, at least on the painting, so we can move forward. Or at least, since the budget for next year hasn't been approved, what you wanted me to, what direction you wanted to give me on these two projects.
And as it's presented in the budget, it's estimated at 50,000 in the CIP for the
Yes.
painting to be funded by the general fund.
Correct.
I would prefer waiting until after the budget process,
On both?
both.
Okay.
I mean, we have a tough budget coming up. and this is
Agreed.
Something, and you just said it's not gonna happen this summer. And most of our meetings are, there's some overlap with staff time. And it's not that I don't wanna resolve it, but I think we have to look at it in relation to everything else in the budget.
Just to
Be
be
my
clear,
opinion.
the air conditioning wouldn't happen this summer, the painting could.
The painting could.
I understand that.
And what we can do is, we can go ahead and start writing the specifications and the bids and the design and have it ready to go. So if it does work out in our budget, we can move forward as quickly as possible.
Well, and only because of caution, is that code, because of having more code enforcement officers now, they're going to be hitting properties that have not been hit in the last 3.5, 4 years.
Yeah.
And ours is a property as well. And I would say go ahead and start with that painting,
I agree with that.
because it's gonna come back and bite us. I mean, that's what we hear when it comes to shoveling the payments, all of this. Okay, city, you've got properties.
Unfortunately, there's very little painting on this building. The majority of the building is brick
That's
and
right.
stone and more, that sort of
Yeah.
thing, so.
Do you have any sense at all what it will cost?
I put $100,000 in for the painting and the air conditioning, hopefully to cover both, so.
If we're going to, as Penny says, if we're going to
We can't
complain about
run
other
with the
people's houses,
painting.
we've got to get ours.
We've got to approve a budget in a month and a half. I mean, I don't see what the advantage of approving it now is.
Well, we can, like I said, we'll go ahead and work with engineering to put a bid together and stuff and have it ready to go once you say okay.
Yeah, I mean, and, you know, if nothing else, can't we look at the painting part
Yeah.
versus, can't you
Yeah.
split it there?
I'm okay with 1 and 2. I agree with Marty on the air conditioning.
Okay.
You're okay? So were there 3 saying okay on the painting?
I'm okay with painting.
I heard Councilmember Munson, Councilmember Nye say go
Yes.
ahead on the painting.
All
Okay.
right.
So we'll hold on the AC, we'll go with the other 2.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.
Do you want me to stay for the budget, or you want to work with utilities first?
I don't, does it make a difference? Want to just do parking while Eric's up here?
Sure.
He's warmed up, he's
Yeah.
ready to
Mike said that's a grand idea.
That's right. It's all for it. He thinks that's fantastic.
We saw you slide back down in the seat.
I had Mike suggested he's trying to do last year was.
Well, I can always share. Mike, if you prefer to present with Eric.
I don't have a memo prepared, I just figured we'd look through the budget book a little bit. If you have your budget book, I was gonna start in section 1, page 30, which is a part of the budget message that Mr. Zimmerman put together. And on the parking fund, I'm not gonna read it to you, obviously, but, yeah, you can read it yourself. It summarizes it. Basically, you know, the revenues we're expecting for the 15-16 budget to decrease a little bit. Part of that is twofold. We have some clients like the Walnut Street Clinic currently rents about $15,000 a year in parking at the Rochester lot. They'll be relocating to Cleveland Avenue. We know that's going to happen. The exact date is, you know, up in the air. The rest of the decreases are basically it's just market. It just happens. We have people come and go. But right now, it's kind of looking that way. As far as increases in costs, we're looking at a slight increase, about 6%. That's mostly in wages and benefits. While most of the employees in parking are part-timers, there are a few full-timers. Part of my salary is part of that. Jason Rogers, his salary, and we have other full-time staff. There's non-operating expenses. There's a decrease in that. It has to do with the debt being paid down. Interest due, depreciation expense includes a small increase that has to do with improvements that are being done, new equipment, things like that that are being purchased. And then a capital outlay, we're looking at, part of the whole parking system, a $60,000 increase. And what we're looking to do is last year we worked on the Church Street lot, which had to do with some new paving and slurry seal. This year, the $60,000 goes towards the central lot. That's the next lot that we'll be working on. So that's kind of a general summary of the highlights. The other highlight that's not listed here is, right now, there's no rate increases, or rate changes, I should say, no rate changes projected. Yeah, yeah. So there's no rate changes planned or programmed the next year. If you go back to projections, we go back to section 7, page 27. Here we see not only next year's budget, we see obviously the next 4 years after that through fiscal year 19 and 20. And for the most part, revenues are staying pretty even keel through either the parking decks or the street meters and that sort of thing, other until you get the year 19 and 20. That's showing an increase in revenue for half a year for a third parking deck, if that comes to be. So that's been pushed out a little ways. And the same way with the revenues in the street and lots don't change, they stay pretty much even. What you see, though, is in operating expenses, they do go up again, also in 1920, reflect also the operating of the third parking deck should have come to be at that time. Anything else on that page you want to?
And I was just to add to that, just overall, the past couple of years, the parking fund with paying off the debt on what used to be referred to as the North Potomac Street deck, which is now the University District parking deck. With being able to pay that bond down, we're seeing for the first time that the parking fund is actually able to operate at a profit. They're no longer operating at a loss. And the good news to that is, and you can see it in the projections.
Yeah, show them which row on the
Yes,
projections.
it's actually the very bottom row on page 27. It says increase, decrease, and retained earnings. So that's really looking at parking funds, income statement, and their operations, what their performance is at each of the years. You'll see in fiscal year 13, they made $254,000. In fiscal year 14, $136,000. We're estimating that we're going to end fiscal year 15 at 116. And then in fiscal year 16 proposed budget, that we would still be operating at a slight positive, but not quite as much. We're going to go down to 53,000. And the reason for those is as we're starting to operate better and more efficiently, we're able to go ahead and put money back into the infrastructure and do some investments in some of the other things. So as you look in the projection section, you're going to see, Eric has already mentioned it with his depreciation expense increasing. It's because we're looking to do improvements. And fiscal year 18, we went ahead and estimated that we would be needing to do about $200,000 worth of
Yeah.
updates to the A&E parking deck, because
that's
that
main-
parking deck is also.
Yeah, and that's in the
getting aged.
equipment. The A&E deck actually opened in January 2007, which is hard to believe it's already been that long. But the equipment that's installed there usually has about a shelf life of about 15 years. So in that year, we may replace it, we may not. We'll just continue to see how that works. But if we replace it all with new equipment, it gets pretty expensive, as you can see. And then 2 years after that, we do the same thing over at the university deck. That was installed in 2009 or 10, so that's also coming up eventually to be replaced also.
With regard to the North University parking deck,
Yes.
one of the things that really needs to be replaced are those pipes or things that show where the curbing is as you go around, coming down.
Okay.
There used to be some probably rubber things that stayed up so you could see the edge of the curbing.
Okay.
Most of them are missing now. I want to thank you for getting the mirror repaired or getting a new mirror. I'm sure
Replaced,
that
yeah.
was expensive and unnecessary, but somebody apparently threw a rock through it or something. You took care of that rather rapidly, and thank you for that. In that parking deck on the first level, when you come in the back, on the left-hand side, there are about 4 or 5 spaces that are marked off where you cannot park. I assume that something is falling from the ceiling, and I'm wondering what's going on there.
There was some concrete that came loose, and we cleared the concrete. I'm trying to get staff in there to see if there's any more loose or not, and then we'll open those spaces back up. So we'll have to make some repairs, or at least make sure there's no more loose concrete that's gonna come off there.
We recently had a company in there looking at the parking deck, evaluating it. How come they didn't pick that up?
The work that we did there was on the upper sections, on the 4th and 5th floor. All that work was, you're right, the evaluation that we had a local engineer go through the entire deck, and we just simply couldn't afford to do all the repairs. Our focus was on the main upper floors, to get that sealed, to get that recoated on that concrete, because that ends up being the roof of the deck. And it was important to get that sealed and get that work done, and that ended up being about $300,000. So there's still other work to do. The deck it was opened in 1986, so, we're kind of working our way down through. And every once in a while, concrete, eventually you're just gonna have spalls and that sort of thing, which is what happened there.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing on this page, just to point out, the third parking deck at this point, the assumptions built into this budget in the out years is that acquisition would start in fiscal year 19. Acquisition and design would start, and then it would be completed in fiscal year 20 with about a half a year of revenue. included, as well as a half a year of expenditures.
Where's that, on page 27?
If you look on page 27,
Oh,
About
that is
half-
number 3, sure.
okay,
Thank you.
sorry.
But you're also not showing debt service yet.
Correct.
She's not showing debt service, so the deficit will jump significantly more than what's shown here. I mean, it's a theoretical deficit because you'll have to adjust something.
Right.
But it'll be higher than this number, because the debt service on that 8.5 million is gonna be, depending on what the rates are then, somewhere around 550,000 a year that's not shown here, because this just takes the bond proceeds and deducts it from construction costs. Right?
Right.
So the real hit doesn't show on this projection yet.
Yeah. If you turn the page, on page 28, what we're showing is, after all the other items considered in their performance and how they end the year, what is the impact on their cash? What is happening to their cash balances, and what impacts there, as Marty just mentioned, Mr. Brubaker just mentioned, is we will start to see that once the deck is completed and we assume within the budget that we're going to borrow $10 million to build the new deck, then the annual debt service costs in the form of principal payments, which you do see on page 28 at the very, very top, it's the third row down, we'll start to see those increase. And we'll see that impact in fiscal year '21, because that would be the full year, the first, after we get the new debt.
Yeah, technically, you have some bond financing here in
Correct.
19, and I didn't see where it's reflected in debt service, but that's a minor thing out there. The main thing is the big hit for the total 10 million, so that'll be more like 600,000 or so.
And our assumption was at the point that we actually received the bond issuance, that our first principal payment on the bigger portion of it wouldn't be due until fiscal year
Yeah, 21.
Timing wise,
Right.
correct, and that's
That's
why you
right.
don't see it, yes.
Overall, on page 28 at the end, you see the beginning cash balance and ending cash balance. And overall, the parking system's doing okay. It's holding its own. It's starting to build a little cash. Hence the reason we're, as Michelle said, we're able to invest it back into the parking system. As we saw last 2 years, we put 300,000 in the other deck. We put 30,000 in the lot to Church Street. Next year, we plan on putting 60,000 in the central lot. So now we're able to build some cash to put back in, and also build for the future when this deck or another parking lot will come online. We'll actually have some money for those type of projects in the future. So, and again, right now with no projected, increases in rates at this time, or no changes in rates. So I think we're pretty much kind of, at this market, kind of maxed out where we can be on those rates, so.
We do need to acknowledge Eric and Jason Rogers, because some of you may recall there were many fiscal years where parking fund was under stress, to the point where we're actually talking about transferring from the general fund to prop up the parking fund. And Eric's got it back on its feet. It's a solid fund. It's a solid operation. Starting to look at some new technologies that might be available. We're opening up the university deck on weekends just because it's lightly used, and
Yeah.
I think it's wise, whether there's a theater performance or not, we're encouraging people to use the deck. It's like we said,
Yeah.
lightly used on weekends.
Very lightly
So we'll
used.
open it up. The A&E deck is heavily used on weekends.
Yeah,
Street meters, still free after 5 o'clock on weekdays and all weekends, and that's something we want to say over and over again.
Right.
Same with the meters in the parking lots.
Right.
Free after 5 PM on weekdays, free all weekend. So Eric's making parking available to the public for free, as well as the fees on the A&E deck on the weekends.
right. Some of the technology we're looking at, I mean, there's, and I'm sure some of you've seen this and read it in other places, you can replace your parking meter heads with another type of head where you can use a credit card, where you can have a pay and display where there's a kiosk. The reason we haven't done a lot of that is cost. Our parking meter heads are in very good shape, and we're only charging for a long time 25 cents an hour, 50 cents an hour. You just can't recover this cost. The pay and display type is somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000 just to set up initially. Well, that's a lot of parking you have to recover just to pay this cost. So we're looking at right now is a lot of what Frederick's done for the last couple of years, was what they call pay by phone, where there's no initial cost on our part, where the cost is absorbed pretty much by the by the user, where they register online. It's a very simple process. You use your credit card, and you call a phone number, and you can basically feed the meter. And the parking enforcement officers can easily online figure out even if the meter says 0, they can go online and say, yeah, they've paid the meter. So the good thing about it is.
With the old meter?
With an old meter, yeah, all they basically do is set up in zones and put stickers on and give you a phone number, and there's a number of companies that do that. We've already talked to a couple of them. The issue, again, is probably you're paying 50 cents an hour now, you're gonna end up paying another, probably at the lowest rate, maybe 20 cents, but probably more like 25, 30 cents to use that service every time you put money on that.
And some of them are privatized, right, where we would like contract with a vendor who then operates, and then we sort of get a percentage of that, and is that?
Yeah, what they would do is they
When I was
charge that.
in down south, there was, I guess it's Lanier Company operated the parking kiosks.
Yeah.
So, you pay in a credit card, you get a receipt, and put that in your
Right.
dashboard. But it was by the Lanier Company. It wasn't the city of Myrtle Beach or whatever it is.
Right, the idea is that they charge a fee and then we get a portion of that back
Right.
in.
But
Initially,
that's still an
we may have to
expensive-
accept 0 or actually pay part of the fee. That's what
Right.
we're still looking at, because the rates are so low, it's kind of hard to, we're not quite sure how the technology will.
So privatizing it doesn't necessarily save any money.
No.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, some cities like Chicago privatized their entire system, and then
Right.
rates went through the roof, and
Right.
Chicago's trying to buy them back and trying to get out of
Right.
contract, and it's.
Yeah, I'm not
it's
proposing that we
complicated.
do that. I
Yeah.
just was wondering.
Yeah. So we're looking at some of that technology. That's why we have some money in there for that also. As Bruce indicated, we've tried to do as much free parking as, Sundays is free in the deck, Sundays in, one of the issues we have at the A&E deck is also, if that's filled up, it only has 185 spaces and there's an event, it's hard for people to get to the university. Once they come across the street and hit the lot and it's empty, they just stop. That's all further to go. So we're trying to encourage people in the university deck to get used to using it, and then hopefully they'll use it more in the future. So that's what I want to answer.
There's very little parking, and I'm saying something that you well know. There's very little parking on 4 and 5 of the north, of the university deck.
Correct.
Are there any programs that you've ever thought about or considered to encourage people who live downtown to park on those floors and maybe give some kind of a discount, thereby opening the lower floors to more transient individuals?
We've kind of thought about that, we just haven't taken it very far. Part of it is always enforcement. How do you know they're using those? You have to have some sort of special tag, and then you have to enforce it somehow. That's part of it. But yeah, we've looked at that some, trying to encourage some sort of long-term parking for those who get them off the street, but we haven't quite cracked that nut so far. We haven't quite figured out how to do that yet.
Well, there's an awful lot of space there that could be making money somehow, I suspect.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we are looking at is, we are tracking our usage on an hourly basis for the most part, every 2 hours from like 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. And if you look on the report, you'll see that. And we know which day and what time we're reaching our maximum. What that tells us is, like in the A&E deck, we have 185 spaces, but we average selling 220 or 230 passes. And the reason is, we know that during the week that we may hit a maximum of maybe 70% occupancy or 75%. So we know we can oversell that deck. We also know that most of that's a Ward Beauty School, and we know they don't have classes 5 days a week. We know their class schedule, so we know we can oversell it. University decks are used differently, but again, that usually is either a Tuesday or Thursday afternoon at 2 or sometimes 4 o'clock. And again, that's 65 to 7% occupancy, which means out of 440 spaces, we can oversell that deck also. Because you have a deck pass doesn't guarantee you a spot. But, so we're kind of watching his occupancy, so we're trying to, so we could probably sell 500 passes of that deck and still be okay. So we're kind of watching the occupancies on that also, so we can manage those decks to the maximum ability. So.
Eric, when you get down to the A&E deck, thinking that there's not another deck, do you have advertising to say, right there on the face of going into the A&E, additional parking on,
No, typically we have staff there. We have staff.
well,
that
but
use
if you
from-
don't, I mean, that's, it's almost like, okay, you know what, look for the yellow sign that says
Yeah.
other parking available up here.
Yeah. No, on our website, though, we list all our parking lots.
Oh, you and your
our-
website,
All right,
I'm
well, yeah.
telling you, but not everybody's gonna go on a website. But I'm saying, if you're pulling down and there's an event and they get that far,
Yeah.
just to put something right there, additional parking, okay?
We can
So
certainly
you
look at
flip
that, sure.
around the street and there it is.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if they can't park there, what they do is they go back to the street, and once they get to the other lot, because instead of going down Washington to Locust and Flop, what they'll do is they'll go across the street. And once they hit the lot and see there's an empty space, that's as far as they usually go. So they just stop in the central lot and park, and then, which is fine.
Yeah,
But we can
still,
certainly, we can certainly
you know.
try and do some sort of signage or something there, sure.
Just a thought.
Anything else?
Any other questions about parking? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clock update.
Sure.
And then just one final word on parking. Under capital improvement projects, there's a handful of capital improvement projects that are for parking, and the individual details start on page 167. And again, there's not a tremendous amount. They're small in numbers. And they are all listed individually on the financial projection page.
Except for garage. A new garage, that's it.
Right.
Yeah. And that would be about a $500,000 problem or larger per year that we have to figure out.
$595,000 over about a 30-year.
Yeah.
That's what we have on there. You were very close, yes. Thought you were looking off my sheet. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. I did do a short two-page memo with my typical bulleted items to run through some high-level discussions for the out years. Items amongst all three of the utilities that are very important for us moving forward. I did list the page numbers. I won't go through everything verbatim in the first four bullets, but you see we are still operating with some openings in each of the funds. I'll do electric, and then we'll have a discussion and go through wastewater and water after that. But 31 positions filled, 4 unfunded yet in the electric utility. Increased earnings that we're looking for at the end of the year, only $161,000. But I did look today on all the cash positions of each of the utilities. We're a little over $5 million. There is a utility bill to be paid out of that, so we are doing well with our cash positions in each of the utilities. I'll talk about the wholesale power rates in a minute. Capital projects out to fiscal year '20, we're projected at $5.6 million in capital improvements. One item I'll just mention for one time for all of the enterprise funds is what we share with the general fund in regard to our payment in lieu of taxes and our administrative allocations. It's approximately $4.7 million this year, or 10% of the revenues of the general fund do come out of the operations of the utility. So for all of you, allowing us to keep them healthy does have a benefit then to the general fund. A healthy utilities definitely helps the entire city, and we do thank you for that, for allowing us to remain healthy as we are. Our energy storage system project that we came with in January with the memorandum of understanding, it is still in place. We've been courted by 2 other companies in regard to this same type of project. We're meeting tomorrow, actually, with the third group that's coming in. We'll be back with you at some point in time. At this point in time, MHI is still a player. We may be able to do better with a better deal with a better corporation for us for the future and operationally. So we'll come back. We do have some time on that. It was, we had 12 months in the MOU to work through some issues. We continue to work with First Energy Supply on contract issues and with Potomac Edison and interconnection agreement. So we are making progress on the administrative side of it. It's just we may want to rethink who our partner is to move forward with this. And that'll be a decision that I'll bring forth, and we can make a decision on that in the future.
Sounds good.
Our wholesale power supply, most importantly for our residents, our new contract begins, it's actually an extension from the '07 contract, will begin on June 1st of this year. We'll see approximately 4.5% decrease in our wholesale rate. So our customers will see savings for 2 more years. It's a 2-year contract that ends on May 31st of 2017. For us administratively, the process of looking forward will begin in earnest late fall or January of 2016. So approximately 9 months from now, we'll be really looking at what are we going to do? We're going to be able to do another contract extension, or are we looking at a full RFP? The way it looks now at out-year prices, I see maybe an increase in wholesale power supply pricing. Maybe it can make a move a different way by the time we begin, but we may have to go back and go through the whole process, looking at another supplier with a full contract. But we'll keep an eye on it, as we always do. We've been very fortunate the last 7 years or so with what we've been able to accomplish.
And what did you
We'll
tell us
try.
we pay, city-like customers pay half the national average per kilowatt?
Half of the national average, and we continue to average 20% below the surrounding territory, what customers pay. So
It's awesome.
it is, and we'll strive to try to keep that. I don't think I can promise that it'll occur as it has in the past, but we'll do the best that we can as we can.
Similar situation with water as well, right? You sent us an email recently that was very positive.
Yes, sir.
And back in section 4, there's bar graphs that finance and staff will put together that show you a comparison of our rates for each of the utilities with other
So,
neighboring
for instance,
communities.
section 4, page 6, just highlights the rates for the light fund and what City of Hagerstown is compared with others similar. And you'll see that we're at $63.86. So not just on a national level, but we also compare ourselves in the budget book regionally as well. So yes, that's a tremendous story to be able to tell.
Mike, how much of an effort would it be to estimate the cost, a rational cost, for the distribution lines in parts of the city that aren't served? And you could weigh the cost of capital for that versus rates received from potential new customers. Everybody outside 1957 doesn't get those rates.
Exactly. It's 3,000 or so actual customers that don't receive these rates in
Right.
the annexed areas.
So how much would it be to say this is something we're gonna offer to all our citizens? Because that's the issue, right? Buying the wires, the distribution
Yes, sir.
system.
That's correct. And we have made 2 formal requests in regard to that, so that we can bring them into our system, and there hasn't been an interest as of yet. But we can do.
Two formal requests.
From us to Potomac Edison to purchase those territories so that we could serve them.
I thought there was
Okay.
some restriction by the Public Service Commission we weren't allowed to do.
We can't just, just take a customer from them.
I
We
see.
can actually purchase customers. We can purchase territory.
I see.
We can expand, but it has to be mutually agreed upon. And then, of course, that kicks in the administrative and the financial.
Yeah, why would they want to do that when they'd lose money?
Yeah, and it's
Essentially.
again, how much profit do they make off of a distribution or a
Right.
customer? And, their rate of return is much greater than ours.
Mm-hmm.
We're approximately 5-point-some-odd% rate of return. They're 9-10% rate of return.
Once
is
again,
what-
though, we're saying this is something we offer to our residents.
Exactly.
That's not strictly accurate.
True, true.
I made a formal request.
Sir?
I made a formal request.
You did
It was
too.
denied.
Fortunately, we do serve streetlights to all those areas, so we do give those residents something from us, the cheap streetlight rate that we do furnish. So we do give them a little bit, but it certainly doesn't offset what our distribution customers receive.
Right.
Mike, what are the, is it 4 unfunded positions?
Yes, ma'am.
What were they?
They are 2 line worker positions, they are an engineering position, and they are a utility worker position that would, building maintenance position.
Okay.
And actually, a full list of all unfunded positions for the city is now back in the budget book this year, because that is a question that has surfaced a couple of times. It's the very last page in section 1, so it's page 76. It's a nice
I'm gonna
chart.
remember that, yeah, okay.
And you'll see numbers because there's a specific number, you'll see like 30.55. I round up when I do them. We share a lot of positions between the utilities, so that's why you might see a number that doesn't jive in one part, but when we talk in whole numbers.
Well, I was
that-
worried about the lineman position as to how much of a cramp that puts you in. Because how many active linemen do we have?
10? 10.
Okay.
For the operation and the sluggish economy that we have right now, we feel that we're accomplishing what we need to, keeping up on the maintenance. If business would pick up, we wouldn't want to get behind with customers, so maybe we could, if we can look and see the economy moving forward, we may come back with a request for that. You know, ours is storm-related.
Yeah.
You know, we've been so fortunate, we've had storms, been able to handle it internally. We do have the ability to call crews in from elsewhere to help us as we have gone and
Correct.
helped.
Right.
But
And
we've
I
been
know
so
that.
fortunate right
I know
now.
there's a lot of unrest with a certain supplier and, you know, that's what I'm saying. I just wondered how many linemen.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're comfortable at the moment, as long as when things pick up, I may come back and make a request in the
Yeah.
future.
In the financial projection section, in section 7, the electric fund starts on page 16. And just to kind of summarize everything that Mike has already said so very well, the electric fund, you'll see the revenue charges and the service charges at the very top. And the story really in electric is as the decreases have been, that we've been fortunate enough to get with the wholesale purchase agreement, those savings we've in turn passed on to the customers, so our revenue actually isn't increasing, it's decreasing, and again, that's a result of passing those savings on to our customers that we've received. Likewise, you'll see the decrease in the operating expenses under purchase power. The only operating expenditures that you'll see increase is some of the other areas where, of course, we have COLAs, we have IBEW, union contracts, so we have had increases in there in fiscal year 15, as well as other staff, some depreciation. And then about halfway down the page, it says increase, decrease in retained earnings. Again, just to point out that that's really how well that the fund operated, and did they operate at a loss, or did they operate at a profit or break even? And in fiscal year 13, they ended the year with a $100,000 loss, and in fiscal year 14, we ended the year with a $588,000 gain. Again, when you get back and you look and you compare year to year, the electric fund seems to, timing-wise, I think, more than anything, one year is a loss, the next year is usually a gain. They're typically pretty close together that they offset when you look across 2 years. The story for the out years and the financial projections is much the same that we've showed in very prior budget books. Is as we go forward and look in the out years, we do not anticipate or have proposed any rate increases, which means that if their rates are held constant, but we increase everything like COLAs and benefits and other type of expenditures, then we're going to start to see that they're going to lose money. And then at the very bottom of the page, if they're losing money, their cash will dwindle if that were to hold true and occur. We want to go to wastewater?
Wastewater?
Unless
Before we
anybody
do
has
that,
any.
Let's just mention the roof project, just so
Oh, I'm
council's
so
aware.
sorry,
That's
yes. So the good news is today is April the 14th, and as of today, Nathan and Mike have $650,000 in our account to go ahead and proceed with doing the roof replacement at the Lake Department. Yes, that's great news. And it's to be funded with bond proceeds. It was included in our tax exempt series that we just received, and we received all of that money for all of those projects today. So yes.
But an indication too of the cost of roof repairs for a building of that
Exactly.
size, $650,000
Correct.
projected cost.
And will be the first time that really the electric fund will start to have any new debt service, and you'll see that in their projections as well.
It's always been a cash-operated business, basically for some small debt service over the years that
Very
Alice
small.
rolled in, but it's been very minimal, so.
Yes, and we've been paying them off one by one there.
Wastewater division, I guess most importantly, to be honest with our projections, we are predicting an $85,000 decrease in retained earnings. I think you're all aware, though, that, we monitor cash flow constantly. We make plenty of adjustments during the year. I can say we'll do everything we can to make sure at the end of the year that is not an actual decrease. We'll strive to make sure for that. 46 employees, 2 positions unfunded. They're both in the collections group. Once again, we've done a very good job of working to make sure that everything does operate as need be. If we see an increase needed, if we see our territory grow, we'll probably be back at that point in time. But we've held these positions open now for 6 years or 7 years is what we've carried on these positions. So 4% following our 5-year rate, our rate study that we completed last year. This is the second year of rates that are set. It would be a 4% increase inside and out for our wastewater customers. We're up to about approximately 19,000 or so actual customers. That's not the population served, but customer count that we have in the city for our wastewater group. Most importantly, the projects, I guess, all are entailed basically at the wastewater plant. What we've accomplished for the last 6 or 7 years in regard to ENR, headworks, disinfection upgrades, spent over $20 million on those. Now we're addressing the Synagro operation and our pelletizing facility. We did recently sign a 10-year contract extension with them. 2 years we'd already worked through, but it's through 2021. We do have approximately $4.5 or $4.2 million designated in the next 4 fiscal years to work on the sludge process at the pelletizing facility. Joe's been working closely with the design build group that Synagro is using. They're following all of our parameters for purchasing, going out for submission of bids. We're following all that very closely. So they are, doing what we would typically do to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. Phase 2 is what Joe's working on right now, and it's basically the drum dryer, sludge dewatering, and odor control specifically at the Synagro facility. We don't get a lot of issue with it, but we know we can do much better. Just had a discussion today on our MDUs requesting our permit information for our emissions. We're getting that to them as quickly as we can. It's all a part of the upgrade that we're working on down there. So that's basically collections. As I spoke before, we're in fairly good shape on collections with our operation and maintenance. We allowed us to continue, with our pump station replacements that we need for the pumps and what we do for all of our customers and
I think overall, the story for wastewater, again, back in the financial projections in section 7 on page 23, I think the thing, it would be easy to look at either Mike or myself and say, okay, fiscal year 16, we're actually proposing that wastewater is going to have an $86,000 loss, and the answer to that is yes. Again, that's very consistent with everything as we progressed and did all the analytical and due diligence at the time we proposed the rate study. We were thinking at that point it would be year 3, just because wastewater had been behind. And at the time we did the 5-year rate study, you'll remember that in fiscal year 15 we did a 12%. In 16 and 17 will be year 2 and 3, and the rate increase is 4%. In the last 2 years, it's 2%. So if you look into financial projections, even though in fiscal year 16 budget, and again, it's halfway down the page, it's increase, decrease, and retained earnings, we're estimating an $86,000 deficit. When we get to fiscal year 17 and the out years, we are anticipating and are still projecting that where we are right now, that we're headed in the right direction and we'll start to turn it around.
And Michelle, just to note, I mean, it's not just in FY16 with the deficit, it's the prior 4 years too. So the wastewater fund has struggled to some extent financially.
Correct, which
We
was.
need to acknowledge that with the mayor and council.
Which was primarily one of the driving reasons and the justification for needing to increase the amount that we did on wastewater rates in the very first year to help better position us by the time we got to year 5. The good thing, again, for wastewater and water, the union contracts are in place and already agreed, so when we look at fiscal year 16 budget, the impact on the salaries and the benefits is known. It's not a best guess. Additionally, it's great, and we're very appreciative, and I thank everybody sitting at the table that we have the 5-year rate study. It makes it so much easier whenever we're looking at doing these projections and trying to assimilate our budget from year to year.
And if you would, Michelle, just explain on that page why the cash figures
Sure.
are higher. That can be a little deceiving to people in terms of the annual operations of the fund.
Okay. Actually, I was going to stop us, if I could, just one more time on the increase, decrease, and retained earnings. So in the prior years, we had the deficits. And in fiscal year 16, we're estimating that we're going to have an $86,000 deficit. When you look at the very next year, when you look at fiscal year 17, it looks like we have a huge jump and we're going to make lots of money. We're estimating $1.125 million. The reason for that is we are anticipating that we would be receiving, would be developer-driven, $1 million contribution. That may or may not occur in fiscal year 17, it may occur in later years. So if you remove that from the equation, we would be looking at about $125,000. And then if you look in the out years, 18 through 20, that trend kind of continues at that rate. Bruce was mentioning at the very bottom of the page, similar to what we looked at on the parking side, is you'll see that we take a look at how much depreciation and how much we're paying out in cash and writing back to our bondholders, how much cash we're actually spending, so we can give you a picture of what the cash balance is like. So if you look in fiscal year 16, we are anticipating that we're going to end the year with a cash balance of $4 million. And then anticipating that from fiscal year 16 through fiscal year 20, that is going to grow. Just keep in mind that cash balance, the reason that we're going to have $4 million cash at the end of 16 is because if you look 3 lines above, you'll see a line that says city bond financing. When we did our budget for fiscal year 16 and all the projects that we're doing, we have included bond issues for $1.383 million, roughly $1.4 million. And so receiving that cash in hand adds to our cash balance. And then in the out years, and again, this is consistent with the ideas that was set forth during the rate study, is that we would find a way in the wastewater fund to do similar to what we do in the water fund, is putting and reserving monies for what? Yes, for what is referred to in the industry as the 3 Rs. I'm sorry. Renovation, rehab.
I was waiting until you were done with the overall presentation, so do it.
Go ahead.
Well, the $1 million is, obviously, I looked at that before and said, whoa, what do you all know that we don't know? I mean, we've had no contributions shown for the last.
That's been the placeholder we've had in place for the last 4 years. The 2 contributions as such are if what we used to call the phase-on property development out near Hagerstown Honda was one for a new pump station. The other was a contribution from the Harrison Farm for Old Pump Station 4. We're going to take some loading off of 4, move it over to 26, and that was the contribution for them to move forward with the development there.
Good.
Those were the 2 areas, and once again, we've moved them out year to year to year.
Yeah,
And if they do not incur,
they slip them out again.
Yes.
right, we would be at $125,000. Most of the big projects.
As long as we don't wind up fooling ourselves with that strategy and winding up with the bottom line that we can't. Because I see no reason not, I can't understand the rationale for doing that in the first year when it's totally unknown, and I think it can be read wrong.
Okay. Most of the project costs in the fiscal year 16 budget, knowing that we were looking at a deficit, is primarily things that we're doing for the Synagro project. They really restricted and decreased down their capital requests in order to help us as much as possible. Any questions on wastewater before we turn back to the water fund?
Water Division, retained earnings, once again, we'll touch on them, $102,000, not a great increase. Cash position doesn't change a whole lot. Today, our cash position was actually $2.89 million in the Water Division, 51 employees, 4 unfunded. Rate increase from the 5-year rate study was 2% per year for both inside and outside. So for the entire 5 years, it's 2% for each class of customers. Capital outlay, much greater than the other funds. I'll touch on the 3 reasons why here momentarily, but projecting $29.4 million in the next 4 years. And I guess number one on most lists for discussion is our transmission main replacement upgrade. We've budgeted $13.25 million over the next 4 years for phase 2 and 3 of this project. Phase 2 of the project will take us from the 2 36-inch mains that we did in phase 1 are at the end of terminus of our property on Bottom Road. And those 2 main extensions will get us basically to the other side of the Concouragee Creek. That'll allow us to do not only the upgrade, but a lot of valving work, which will make it much simpler for shutdowns in the future and for the future work that goes on. The rest of that project then just basically entails the engineering and design for the other 36-inch main, which will go up to Governor Lane. Right now, once they go on the other side of the Concouragee, the one main, the north main, would only go to Route 63. And then the other main, which is the older 1928 version of the main, goes all the way up to Governor Lane, and that's the area of replacement that we designated for that. How many tens of millions of dollars will it take for us to get up through Virginia Avenue? I don't know, but it will be a hefty sum. But this gets us started. At least if we do have a major break on Virginia Avenue somewhere with this project's done, we can get a shutdown much quicker and shorten the time frame up for that, and then work our way up through. Correct, yes, so that would give us great peace of mind. For those of you that remember years ago for the issues that we did have on the Concouragee, it took a little bit of time to resolve that, and did work through it, but it was not an easy time for a lot of folks.
And just a reference point for the mayor and council, on the CIP section of the budget, which is section 9, page 142 is the transmission main project that Mike's talking about, so you can see how he has it broken out in terms of phases, the cost projections for each year. So that's page 142 in section 9.
Next 2 projects to kind of tie together, the Edgemont Reservoir project. Triad does have the permits for dam safety for us to put the monitoring wells in place. We hope to complete that study, bring it back to the council, probably be summer, to look at the actual cost of the dam replacement, dam repair versus an alternate source of water for a decision from the council at that point in time. The draft consent agreement, we've not received that. Our discussions with MD and the dam safety group, once we turn our report in, I think they'll have enough information that they can get back with us, and we can work on if an agreement's going to be required to complete the work up there. Once again, consent agreement basically gives us a timeline for the work and increases our chances of funding for a project of that nature, whatever we so choose at that point in time. Brickner plant, the Chloramination project is moving forward, which is our RC Wilson upgrade. To touch on it quickly, we hope to have a July start date for the actual chloramination to begin of our water. We have some project outreach work that we're completing now with our consultant, Nancy and I, the consultant, will be out meeting with the neighboring utilities, the Funkstown, Williamsport, and Smithsboro that we sell water to in the prisons. Nancy's been working more diligently than I have with the hospital and the large areas that large customers are going to see the change. Everyone's been informed, everyone's behind the process. We see it moving forward just as we had planned on that part. Back to Brickner, we have $3.3 million designated. Nancy's already submitted the funding package to MDE for a request so that we can bring it up to the same treatment attainable levels that we have at Wilson, so we can match the two waters whenever needed. Once we do go with the chloramination project at Wilson, Brickner will basically be unusable at that time until we move forward. We do have a good bit of work to do in regard to that, hence the reason you see the funding request of basically $29 million for the next 5 years to get our water system back up to operational.
Water fund projections in the financial projection section actually starts back on page 19. And again, very similar story with the
19 in section 7.
sorry, yes.
Yeah, just.
Very similar story. We have approved a 5-year rate study plan. Again, fiscal year 15 is the first year. Our proposed budget for 16 would be the second year, and it would end in fiscal year 19. So our revenues, we've increased 2% in each of the out years, because on the water fund side, in the 5-year plan that we did, it was a 2% increase for both inside and outside customers in each of the years. On the operating expenses, the majority of the increase that we're going to see is going to start to be in depreciation, because the RC Wilson plant upgrades, as we've mentioned, the project's drawing to an end. The project has been a multi-million-dollar project, and as we put that, and it comes into service, and we put it in place, our depreciation expense is going to increase significantly with that. Halfway through the page, you see the increase, decrease in retained earnings. Opposite of the wastewater side, on the water fund side, we have been experiencing operating at a profit for the past several years. In fiscal year 13, it was 1.45. Fiscal year 14, it was 3.5. By the time we finish fiscal year 16 budget, though, we're looking at ending the year with $102,000 surplus. Again, there's a variety of reasons why the big increase in depreciation expense. When you do an almost $13 million project and you bring that asset into service, it definitely impacts significantly in depreciation. Also, just as a reminder, fiscal year 15 was really the first year that we saw salary and reinstatements for union groups, and that is definitely reflected in our operating expenditures as well, and then carrying that forward for the contracts and things that are in place. Looking down at the cash position for the water fund, because we've had significant projects that we have done, and we have, on a routine basis, almost annually, we have borrowed money either through a GO bond issue or through MDE. We've been very fortunate so that we could actually succeed and do these projects. But what you're going to see in the out years is, because we've borrowed this money annually, we're to the point where, with the projects being such a high dollar, we're borrowing more money than we're paying off. And as a result, you're going to see our principal payments and the amount that is due on annual debt service requirements increasing. And as that increases, our cash levels are going to decrease. Mike mentioned before the $2.9 million cash. Just a reminder, in the water fund, that $2.9 million is actually the balance on the unrestricted cash. The total cash balance in this fund at the end of fiscal year 16 budget, we're anticipating it being at 10.6. but the restricted cash at 7 million, and then unrestricted, a slight increase up from current levels to 3.6. And then the out years, again, cash levels decreasing as we start to see those higher levels of annual debt service requirements, both in principal and interest expense increase.
Developer contributions again, on this projection, they're showing 2020, 2 million, and the other projection, the big hit was in 2017. What is the rationale on these?
Again, developer driven, and
Well, but, I mean, to go with virtually nothing, and then all of a sudden show 2 million, it's a placeholder for something?
It's for a pump station 2 upgrade, is what that. Yeah, 3 is what feeds the airport. You know, we have the already agreement. We're gonna be required to do something out there in the near future due to the amount of water usage. We'd have $100,000 reserved out of that, but that'll be basically contributions from the customer for the upgrade for whatever requirement comes on for us.
Okay.
And if it doesn't happen, you simply remove from the equation.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, we just continue to move it out in the out years. Pump Station 2, if you remember, we have property reserved, the old Evergreen property. We worked out a parcel of that on the corner of Northern Avenue and Potomac, right across from the old Sears building. That would be the new location of Pump Station 2.
It's good use of that land.
Yes, sir.
It's not good for much else.
Mhm.
We usually have a couple $100,000 every year associated with infrastructure that is donated to the city, associated with extensions of mains and existing subdivisions as they continue to grow out as well. And that's been in the 300 to 400,000
Each year.
sure, yes.
We finish with water.
I am, you have questions?
I do. I need some information, which I do not believe is in here. I have some concerns which this information will help me to know whether or not my concerns are real, one way or the other. How many employees are there in water?
41, or I'm sorry, 51.
51, okay. So water and wastewater are fairly close. I would like to know what the overtime expenditures, employee overtime expenditures are for both organizations in a comparison for the last 4 years.
Between water and wastewater?
Correct.
So 15 being the base year, 15, 14, 13, and 12?
Yeah. I would also like to know what the employee turnover has been between water and wastewater. And I would also like to know why, when there is a device for melting the ice during the wintertime, why the employees have to stand there with something and break the ice. I don't understand that. If it's an inadequate device, I don't understand why we don't have it fixed. But I need this information to make some intelligent decisions about this budget.
That's an operational issue. Running a track vac causes an increase in turbidity in the water, which in turn causes us an increase in the operation to get the water potable for our customers.
Can you quantify that somehow?
Sure.
Could you do that?
Sure.
And I'd like to have this stuff as soon as you can get it to me.
And then that also creates air infiltration within the line. And in that particular season, that is specifically detrimental because you don't have the opportunity to access flushing of the system.
Yeah, and this is going on, of course, and
Because
said it's in the
you-
beginning of the treatment process where this is
then you're
at.
flushing hydrants on the street in 20-degree weather. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
Of course, you'll share that information with all of us.
Oh, absolutely.
Any other questions, or concerns about water, wastewater?
I have a question. I noticed you have a number of positions in each of our utility operations that are not filled. And I would just have a curiosity of the average age group within those departments, and I guess because I go to a number of functions in my own profession where, you know, just as any of the other types of operations, it's an aging out of the workforce, and that there isn't a lot of backfill going on in terms of you know, early educational opportunities for the younger workforce, you know, to backfill these jobs that become vacated, and that's something I have particular interested in, because as each organization continues to need these personnel, you know, they sort of cherry pick from, you know, from one another, and I would just be curious, you know, over the next 3 or 6 years, you know, how that personnel shakes out.
Our greatest concern, I guess, where you see the population, the workforce aging the most is probably in the wastewater treatment plant. Probably, what, Joe, 40% of our operators could retire right now.
That to me, I think, is a concern, because it isn't like you can go out and find, you know, 10 or 15 folks with that level of certification to jump in and do it.
Correct.
It isn't out there. It doesn't exist.
And we've carried that number for a while, and they've, luckily for us, have chosen to stage how they go. And so we've not been forced, you know, we may hire 2 at one time or one.
You know, I know that Maryland Rural Water and MSED, you know, don't appear to be offering the same level of, you know, detailed, free and cheap offerings. So I just, that probably
It is a
gonna get
concern.
worse.
It is.
This is part of the issue that I'm interested in getting at, Kristen. Just articulated it well.
Any other questions or concerns on water, wastewater? Thank you very much.
Yep, thanks.
And with that, we will move into the city administrator's comments.
Just one, can you clarify on the 28th, you've got a regular meeting that starts at 7, so 2 weeks from now. We're intending to have a budget work session that afternoon. What time would you like to start the budget work session on the 28th?
I think we were looking at 4 o'clock. Does that
Just
work
to
for everybody?
Confirm that. 4 o'clock. We'll have the general fund done for next week on the 21st. We've got time set aside. You are going to have a long work session on the 21st based on the agenda. But we're in the budget season, so that's what happens in April and May. So 4 o'clock on the 28th. And that's it for me.
All right. Council comments, Mr. Metzner.
Been a very busy and productive couple of days. Look forward to the next couple.
Ms. Nye.
I want to thank Public Works for helping the Hagerstown Housing Authority when they found out that the area of the corner of Baltimore and South Potomac Street actually did belong to them. And there was a bush that was there that was overpowering the benches, as well as we had homeless. So Hagerstown Housing Authority took it out and then asked our guys if there was some dirt that they could spread around, and they did. And I appreciate that very much. Also, I need an update, Bruce. This is for you if you can follow it through with John, because I really don't have time to even catch an answering machine. The places that we were actually looking at on South Prospect, I would just like to have the latest on what may be happening there, specifically the one that was going to auction.
Yeah, that's on the agenda for next Tuesday.
Okay, I
278.
just needed to have an update on that. And also, I've seen at the end of the fairgrounds, the sheds are being painted, but I don't know if that's just somebody that lives there that's painting that section, or is that going to be the whole area? I just want to know. The
where?
sheds at the fairgrounds, okay? So I didn't know if, if somebody was just doing it just to do it, which I don't have a problem with. They're white and it's clean. And I know that it needs done as well as the entrance building needs done, and I don't know where
Check
that's
with
going to be on the agenda either. When we were talking also about the parking garages, and I really did not look at the paper that comes out each month, but has there been ongoing problems with homeless in the stairwell over at this parking garage? And has there been any problems with the elevator that is down in the A&E deck? I know that that was to be repaired, but I know we've got a lot of homeless that are here, and I know what homeless can in fact do, so.
Yeah. Well, we made major repairs to the A&E deck after
Correct.
the
I
flooding
know
last
that.
summer, to the
Yeah.
elevators. I'm not aware that elevators had subsequent problems, but I'll check.
Okay. But as far as the stairwell over here, I know there had been comments before, as far
There've
as
been times
those,
where people
right,
have-
and I didn't know if that is being patrolled regularly or not. And I just really thought about it when he brought up the parking garages.
Yeah, we've talked with HPD about it. We've got cameras in the deck, so.
Also, I was asking, Kristen, this will interest you because the answer is going to be no for both of us. I had gotten an email from a lady who is now going to have a Section 8 house, a house that's going to be turned over into a Section 8 property. It, of course, is in the north end of town. The question was, can there be a hold on any more Section 8s coming into Hagerstown? Now, I was told that we cannot do anything, but is there a chance that we can do something? Is there a moratorium that we can put on Section 8 housing? And Kristen had brought up one other time as to where we could not turn a single-family home, and that was a specific area, into apartments. I just think that it needs to be looked at since we really are the place that they're all coming to. So, and I didn't know, like I said, I was told that we can't stop it, but what can we do? Is there an answer? And I do need to get back to this lady. Also, at our regular meeting, it was brought up about the veterans banners. And since I really don't have much time, and Mayor, I know you don't have any time, but I did go along out with Mr. Thompson. I have got maps here for each council person. I'd like for you to look at them. What we have come up with is where the banners are now flying in the area around the downtown, is that we bring it out a further more. Now, Aaron had also suggested to Mr. Thompson, if that's still on the books, that maybe he could also alternate every other banner with a veterans banner. The banners are the exact same size as what are flying now. They look much larger when they're here and you're holding them up, but they are the same size. If you would please look at these streets, and hopefully then we can discuss this, because May the 30th is in fact coming up very quickly. And I know that there is a lot of interest of people, so the sooner the better.
I have a meeting with Mr. Thompson next week.
Well, that's
So
great.
take a look
So,
at that
but
with
anyway,
interest.
here they are, and the ones that are circled in the yellow are the ones where the city already has theirs. But again, Aaron said it could be that they could alternate them. So that's what we're looking at. And also, we're looking to talk to somebody out at the Korean Monument, because it could be that those that are, you're going to take one, Lou, those that are representing the Korean veterans may want to see Korean veterans banners flown there. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Brubaker.
Rewalk the Bose Trail route on Sunday with my wife. Big challenge there, both financially and in making it a logical desire route for people to do. Big challenge, but the good thing is City Park, how much people were enjoying the weather. And we had at least two groups of people visiting Hagerstown remarking what a wonderful, facility we have there. So again, it's nice to hear people appreciate that.
Great. Thanks. Mr. Alshire.
A couple of things. The first is, I'd like to thank city staff, especially those in the water and sewer, especially the sewer department. Had a neighbor knock on my door Sunday morning saying, hey, I got some water coming up in my backyard. It doesn't look good. And they were out, I would say, within an hour and addressed the issue on one of the city mains and were able to correct it and assist that neighbor. So, you know, working in local government, I know nobody likes to get that call out on a Sunday afternoon, especially as nice as that Sunday was, as this past Sunday was, but they came out and they took care of it. The second is, you know, our citizens, they drive by all kinds of things in this community, one of which is the ongoing demolition of the Melt project. I know this body has had a number of conversations about it, and for probably appropriate reasons. Those conversations are you know, are within executive privilege. But I think that we need to provide some type of update to the citizenry as that project moves and stalls and moves and you know, goes forward. Because I think that frankly, the better informed folks are of where we're at in the process, you know, the better they're able to understand our sincerity in trying to get that building demolished and, you know, put back in the right path. The other issue is the ruling that we received regarding the petition. You know, Bruce, you sent us some information on that about the same week that you sent your budget memo update number 2 on the COLA history. You know, and I found it interesting because I got sort of those both of those documents, and you know, the court ruling basically says, you know, hey, you know, this petition's good to move forward, and the premise of that petition is hey, we need binding arbitration because you're just not fair, you know, enough with you know, with compensation to, you know, in the eyes of the IAFF, you know. And I look at Bruce's memo and from '07 to this proposed budget, and you see, you know, for 3 or 4 years, no COLA, no COLA, no COLA, you know, step freezes, career freezes, and then for 2 years you see, you know, 2% and 3% in COLAs reinstituted and contracts resolved and you know, wage increases and changed. And the two just don't match. You know, and I know there's going to be deliberations by this body and others on this issue, and I will continue to say to the citizens that binding arbitration isn't a good thing for our citizenry. It's not a good thing to take the budgetary responsibility that this body has out of our hands in any instance and place it in the hands of a third party who has no obligation to the public. While some judge somewhere on one of these decisions can certainly sit in a chair for whatever reason and say, hey, you know, you need to put this on a ballot, or worse yet, you need to put it in some charter. I don't think that there's any judge in the land that has the ability to look at me as an elected official and say, you have to adopt an ordinance that establishes rules to that effect, because I don't, frankly, I don't have to do that. You know, I was elected into this position. I get to make decisions up in that seat, just as the rest of the folks do when they take votes on issues, and I have that right. And so, you know, if there are folks that think that I'm going to waver on that, it's just not simply so. Folks want to put it in a charter, that's fine. Do I got to execute it any further than that? I don't think so.
It's also silent on the issue of the mayor's prerogative to veto any ordinance passed by the city council, which would be an interesting twist in the whole process.
And the last item is a positive note. I don't know if it's positive, but each Friday we go somewhere with the kids, and probably for the 4th Friday in a row we were driving. I get over to the mall and I'm thinking, I just can't do it again. I can't,
go in here and walk around for 2 hours. It's way too nice out finally. So we come downtown, we parked on the deck, and oddly enough, the kids had never been in the deck, so, that's exciting to ride the elevator. And we went to Bulls and we ate dinner, and oddly enough, we didn't spend any more or less than we would going to the mall. We didn't buy, any junk trinkets and things like that. We didn't eat in some food court, with three limited options. And we came over to the University Park afterwards, and I'm sure there are folks that I'm familiar with on Facebook that can see the pictures that my wife posts incessantly. But they played in the University Park for about an hour, and there wasn't, and I don't want to knock them all, but for 3 weeks, you take the kids in and you hear, 13 and 14-year-olds, cursing and chasing each other around and things that at my kids' age, you try and shelter them from a little. And it was good. It was a good time. And it was different.
And wait till the pop-up shops are down there, then they can buy the little
Yeah.
trinkets.
Yeah. Mr. Munson?
Last Thursday, Penny and I went to the Hagerstown Housing Authority board meeting. And the Hagerstown Housing Authority has announced a very large, significant effort to get rid of bed bugs. They're going to put $100,000 into that effort if necessary. The board made some decisions to really crack down. There are a lot of issues with bed bugs there. The main issue is the lack of cooperation from the tenants. And the tenants who do not cooperate in the future are going to be fined, among other things. And I think that the new administration down there is quite serious about eliminating bed bugs to the extent that you can eliminate bed bugs. I heard some good rumors along the way about the success that Collegiate Acres is starting to have. They've begun renting their apartments there, and I believe they're being very successful at that. And that's a really good thing for them, obviously, but it's a really good thing for us because I believe the tax bill out there is going to be, something like $750,000 a year. A lot of money that'll be flowing into the city coffers. And I certainly wish them all the success. I'm asking the council, this next item is something I would like to ask the council to concur on. And that's some metal tree boxes. There are 6 tree pits in the first block of North Locust Street. All the pits are in pretty good shape. But Burkett's down there is having a problem with the fact that the dogs in the neighborhood use the tree pits to relieve themselves. And customers sit in the restaurant and they see this. And it turns out that about 30% of Mr. Burkett's business comes from out of town. That's one of the closest restaurants to the dual highway. And a lot of people come there because they want to stop, get something to eat, and get back on the road. So the 6 metal tree boxes would cost about $5,000. Now, one of the reasons that this makes sense is because in the first block of the first block of North Locust obviously connects to the first block of East Franklin, where these tree boxes are being installed. And I had a conversation with Rodney about these, and he feels that he can cover the cost of the $5,000 to put the tree boxes in order to try to improve that block a little bit down there. Lord knows that block needs to be improved. And so I favor this course of action because, again, Rodney thinks that he can find the money in budget and maybe get a better deal out of the company that's selling us these things. I just need a couple of other councilmen to agree with me.
What about the fencing? I mean, why are they gonna be boxed? Because we've got the fencing out here.
I think that's what he
That's
means.
what he's talking
Is that
about.
what
Seems
you're
that
talking
They're called
about, the
tree
metal
boxes.
fencing?
They're called tree
Yeah.
boxes, yeah.
Well, it's not a tree box to me. Okay, Don, I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah, there's two different types that I see downtown, and one is the metal grate that locks it in, that I thought was a tree box, and the other one is the ornate
Yeah, that's out
three-side
here,
fencing.
like out here, in the
Yeah.
front.
Yeah, and I'll just say that the three-sided
That's what I-
ornate fencing works.
The ones I'm talking about
They're a little
are what
higher.
are directly in front of our building. They're
Okay.
specifically
More
what
substantial.
I'm talking about.
Okay.
There's a tree box.
I don't think anyone would object. In addition to that, though, I would wonder if we and would want to have staff look into the doggy do, put some dog bag containers or
Hey, I think that's a great
dispensers.
idea.
I don't know if they're in the central lot, but I know a lot of residents who live on either side of the central lot, that's basically their backyard.
Yeah.
And maybe having a dog bag dispenser somewhere located in that area might help decrease that
I think Rodney
dog
would love
litter
to do that,
problem.
or whoever does it.
My question would be, we do it where Don wants to do it, what other streets does that raise the same issue on? I mean, I don't know the answer to that, that would be my
You know,
question.
you make a valid point, but the fact is that, as I said, 30% of those customers are coming in from out of town.
I heard.
And they get an impression about Hagerstown.
Right.
I think a better impression would be good for us.
So are we okay on the tree boxes?
I think so,
Estimate of 5,000 for the 6.
I'm
Isn't that the figure?
I'm fine with putting it on the agenda,
You will put it on the agenda?
because I got some issues with some of the trees.
Then my
anyway.
question again would be, where we have and where we don't, et cetera.
I know that they
I'm
have a
not
plan to
contesting it.
phase
Not necessarily a good
in
idea.
boxes all, basically starting in the city center and working out, but let's get an update on that, sure.
Yeah, because I know on the outskirts where people have got them on their own sidewalks, they actually have taken the initiative of putting their own around, because we have all of these
Sure.
people with dogs and no bags.
So what we're talking about is what we're talking about, what's outside of City Hall
That's what I
now?
wanna know.
Yeah, just, because I'd like to look and see what.
And there's
we're
new ones coming, that's what they're doing across the street.
Okay.
They're putting in the new boxes that'll
That's what they were
be
working
more
on
substantial.
down here
Yeah, we're doing
then.
it on the first block of East Franklin.
Yes, that's
right
what they
now.
were working on
Okay,
the
so
other
what
day.
you say, you look at there and.
There's
Some
two
prospect.
different kinds,
Yeah, because the grate box, which keeps the tree flush,
yeah.
to me, I think is way better, not just for the dog issue, but if you go to these two trees down here, just past City Hall,
Yeah.
they don't have anything, and the sidewalk is like this now. And that's why I said, that's why I'd be interested if it's those.
Well, I would like to do it as quickly as we can because we might be able to get some savings in combining it with what's going on Franklin Street. So we need to do it timely.
No comments for me tonight because we're running short on time. I'm never short on things to say, but I will just save them for later. We are adjourned, thank you.